Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Praga Esports Silverstone Showdown, powered by Race Department. Today is a very special day indeed. We have got a selection of incredible drivers taking part in an incredible car at the home of the British Grand Prix, the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit in Northamptonshire, England. My name is Paul Jeffrey, and today in the virtual commentary box, I am delighted to introduce, to welcome the one and only Jack Oliphant. Jack, how are you?
I'm absolutely fantastic, Paul. Yeah, can't wait to the showdown that we've got in store for us today. A whole host of real-life drivers, guest drivers, invited drivers along with us as well, and some really big names out there as well in what is going to be one of the biggest cars in British motorsport, I'm sure, over the next 10 years in the Praga R1T. I'm looking forward to it. I'm sure you are too. We've got a whole host of special sort of adverts coming up for you, little interviews, and obviously two fantastic races.
Yeah, it's going to be absolutely fabulous. So, for everybody at home, first and foremost, hello, welcome, and thank you for joining us this afternoon for what should be, as Jack says, a bit of a treat here at Silverstone. This is a race that's been put on specially by Praga, with the help of the race department, to present to you the drivers and the car and the teams that are taking part instead of being at the Britcar opening round at Silverstone. So, we're going to be running the same time and the same day as what that opening round should have been had it not been delayed thanks to the ongoing world health pandemic. So sadly, they're not going to be at the real British Grand Prix, which I'm sure will be a heck of a lot colder, windier and potentially wetter than it is in Sim today. But it does mean that everybody at home gets a little bit of a virtual racing treat. And Jack, Silverstone, the Praga R1T, which is a slight tweak to the original car that features in Assetto Corsa. So it's got a little bit more horsepower, it's got a nice default setup that's been applied. This is a combination that should, we hope, make for two very, very interesting races this afternoon.
Well, I'm a massive fan of not only sprint racing, but also fixed setup racing as well. It all comes down to the drivers, and we've got some special talent here tonight, well, today even, and I'm sure they're going to abuse all the track limits that they're available to them on the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit. I'm sure everybody who's watching this knows full well just how fast and flowing that circuit can be, not only for Formula One, but GT racing as well, all the way down to sort of your MX-5s and your small skip barbers as well. It's a great track, and the aerodynamics and the extra horsepower that have been pushing through this car and the Praga updated car is certainly going to make for an absolutely fantastic spectacle. We've not only got the guest drivers from Praga, which we will run through in a couple of minutes' times as well, but we've got a whole host of sim drivers as well who are very much used to getting out there and attacking the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit in the sims as well. So fantastic to see the dynamic of how these drivers adapt to everything.
Yep, that's very right. So, for you at home, a quick recap of what to expect today. At 20 past the hour, which is 1:20 UTC, Qualification 1 will start. Then the race, the first race of the day, will run, and it's a 20-minute affair. That should wrap about 5 to 2 in the afternoon, 2 o'clock or so. We'll have a very short 8-minute break. Then at 8 minutes past 2, we'll be joining Qualification for our second race, which should start at 2:15 and is a 30-minute sprint to the flag. There are no pit stops, there are no strategy. It is pure and simply get out there, qualify as high as you can, and drive as fast as you can, which should, as we say, lead to some really interesting racing. We've got about 20 drivers on the grid, and Jack, feels like a good time to have a very quick look at who exactly these drivers are that are taking part in the race. As you say, there's a mix of guest drivers, so for those of you that are not aware at home, Praga invite certain guest drivers during the course of the season to race the real world R1T, as it is. These drivers will be presented in this racing event as well. There are some invited esports stars as well, but if we could start off, I'll hand over to you, Jack, to talk about our guest drivers today.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, one person that probably doesn't need that much introduction is Jimmy Broadbent. Of course, this is going to be sort of, I think he's got quite a few viewers on his stream at the moment, and obviously we're very thankful that you guys are tuning into the race department stream. But of course, Jimmy, big YouTube star these days, isn't he? He's really exploded since the global pandemic has come into action, with the amount of E-Series that came into fruition when real life racing got cancelled down. And with 671,000 subscribers on YouTube, he's certainly somebody who's going to be put in the spotlight, shall we say, for the Praga program. And I think a lot of people are very excited to see how he cracks on, because unlike real life races turning to sim world, like we saw a lot of people doing. It's actually sim races turning into real life races as well, and seeing how they get on with the journey. And I think Jimmy's certainly going to be one of those drivers that people are going to be keeping a sharp eye out on. Unfortunately, we had one dropout as well before I hand back over to you, Paul. We had Jem Hepworth, who was supposed to be here. Now, Jem's only had 1 year of real life sort of car racing and ended up, I think, winning the Brit car in championship last year in a Praga as well. So it's really gutting that we don't see her out on circuit with us tonight. But we do have, we had a substitute, I think, of Freddie Hewitt, who's an Enduro KA driver. Very much looking forward to seeing how he gets on as well. But we got a whole host of other drivers as well. We got Charlie Martin, a Praga guest driver. We've got Jack Fabi, who is Charlie's partner in the upcoming 2021 campaign for the Praga Brit Car Series. Miles Lacey's here tonight, part of Supercar Driver, obviously another YouTube presence, so social media presence, and Ash Dibden as well. So there's a whole host of people that are certainly going to bring us a little bit of spice tonight and also give people something to look forward to whenever the Brit Car comes around. You know, plenty of content getting pushed out there as well to see how these guys crack on with their journeys.
Yeah, some fantastic names there. To run down the rest of the field as well, we've got Sam Holman from Praga Cars UK, also a sim racer himself, so keep an eye out for Sam. Should be troubling the top 10, I would hope. Ed Bridle, who's a Praga driver with VR Motorsport, will be taking part in the race. And Thomas Sabacek, which is an engineer for Praga. So Thomas, again, a little bit of sim racing experience, so should be quite strong. And then, talking of sim racing experience, we've got Thomas Sibilia, who is an R8G Esport driver. Roman Grosjean, IndyCar this season is Roman Grosjean. R8G Esports, very big Esport team in a number of different championships. So great to see Thomas Sibilia on the track with us. Dave Newsham, former British Touring Car Championship race winner, and again another great name on the national British motorsport scene, alongside his son Callum Newsham, who currently races in the Mini Challenge Championship. So Callum and Dave, both accomplished sim racers themselves. Phil McGovern from Caffeine and Machine, David Hornsby, Brit Car Technical Manager, David Ward, Time Attack driver and sim racer, Michael Seal, who's another experienced sim racer, Isaac Rain, Max Edmondson and Dave Marshall are rounding out our race starters today. And we've got, haven't we, Jack, quite a nice mix of drivers that are very well known in the real world but have a healthy amount of sim experience, and some drivers that are tapping into this esports scene for one of the very first times.
Well, I think it's Ashley Dibden, who this is their debut in sim racing. I think he says he's very experienced on Forza, which is a bit more of a simcade for anybody out there who's wondering what sort of maybe the difference is between the likes of Forza 7 and iRacing, Assetto Corsa and Assetto Corsa Competizione and all those sort of things. It's very much with the controller. Well, he's with the pedals and wheels now, and this is going to be his debut. So a big baptism of fire for the Praga guest driver here, Dibden. You can already see him getting a bit squirrely out of cops there. It's going to be a tough one for him. In fact, that might have been Stowe, actually. But either way, it's going to be a very interesting to see how they adapt. And to be honest, he's already in the top 10, so I'm quite impressed. At 156.5, this is only practice. Not everybody's set a flying lap time. But with fixed setups, there's not really much sandbagging that can go on. So I'm still very impressed with how Dibden's getting on here.
Yeah, it is. It's a very even field. Fixed setups, of course, for those of you at home that maybe aren't aware of what this terminology means, it's basically we've got a car setup that's been provided to all the drivers. So it's the same fuel level, the same tweaks to the way the car behaves and handles. So everybody's got an even platform. The car obviously is identical across the board as well. The man that you're seeing just spinning out on track is Jack Fabi. He's the chap that created this setup for our drivers. So they can change tyre compounds, they can run softs or mediums or hards, but in terms of the actual car setup itself, it is identical. So really the onus is very much on driver skill. And with the fact that we've got no pit stops in this race, it is all about your pace. It's all about how fast can you go, how few mistakes can you make. And Silverstone, Jack, is a track where overtaking is absolutely possible, and especially in this type of car as well. So the racing should be pretty intense.
You can push the car to the limit around the Silverstone GP circuit, as you can with most cars, and it gives you the confidence as well, this kind of circuit, to really push the limits of the car as well. A lot of these drivers may be jumping into the sim, maybe jumping into a higher aero for the first time, or XYZ, you know, all these different reasons. Well, at least Silverstone, it's not exactly Alton Park, is it, for anybody out there who's a fan of the green hell that is Alton Park? But it gives you an opportunity to run wide. If you need to run wide, you've got that opportunity. So hopefully we'll see a little bit less bashing around and less people non-finishing than we used to. I mean, at the end of the day, it's sprint racing, and these people want to win. You know, everybody who's in this race is a competitive driver or sim racer, so they'll be wanting to win. And as Charlie Martin runs a little bit wide, it's just giving you an example of what I was talking about. Basically, if you go wide, you're not going to get hurt too much. You're not ending up another wall anytime soon.
Yeah, there's plenty of space at the Northamptonshire venue that is Silverstone. As you can see, practice is on your screens at the moment. We're not talking too much about what's happening on track in case you're wondering why we're not commentating and more talking. We'll wait for that side of things when qualification starts in a few short minutes' time. But Charlie Martin exploring the limits of this R1 out at Silverstone at the moment. Static weather conditions, so we're having an unrealistically sunny day at Silverstone. Anybody who's been to the home of the British Grand Prix will know that 3 coats are the wear of choice at this kind of track. But really, really nice circuit, really nice car, great collection of drivers, and a fascinating event ahead. If I was to pressure you, Jack, to put your money on who might be at the sharp end of the grid, what would be your call at this early stages of the running?
Well, the cameraman has already probably called it out for me, Thomas Sibilia. No wonder. I mean, the R8G Esports driver, we got a lot of sim drivers here, but to race for Roman Grosjean's team, you got to have something about you, haven't you? And I think, well, Thomas, he's half a second quicker than Dave Newsham, who we've mentioned before as an ex-BTCC driver, and well, podium as well on his final ever drive in the BTCC, and has developed over into the sim racing world. And I actually know Dave Newsham quite well from some of the series that I've commentated with him involved as well, so I can go into a little bit of his backstory a bit later. But I would probably say Sibilia is a bit of a shoe-in to be around the podium positions as long as he keeps it clean. Obviously, Dave Newsham's right up there at the moment. Callum Newsham again, and you know, his son is in 4th place. Isaac Rain, I believe that is in third. Now, David Ward is a bit of an anomaly as well. He's part of the Fast Star Esports crew, who is obviously Fast Star, very big social media presence. So they've got an esports team as well, which David Ward is pretty much the head of, their top driver, you could say. He won the PMR Porsche Cup that I commentated on a couple of weeks ago, won the entire championship, and is a fantastic driver in himself. So expect to see Dave right at the front. And obviously then you've got the experienced sim racer of Jimmy Broadbent in 7th place. I wouldn't be surprised if he's fighting for those top 5s come the end of it, and that's obviously what a lot of our spectators are hoping for. And obviously hoping a few of the Praga guest drivers maybe string a couple of laps together in qualifying and qualify right at the sharp end to try and test their skills against some of these sim racers' best.
Yeah, fantastic stuff. And of course, this is for fun. It's a race that's been put on as a replacement for the unfortunately delayed real-world encounter. So there's no big pressure to perform. It is just for the pleasure of participating together, and of course for the audience as well. But before we get into the meat of qualification, I'd like to introduce somebody to the broadcast, Mr. Mark Harrison, who's the Managing Director of Praga Cars UK. We're going to have a quick word with Mark before qualifying. So Mark, how are you?
I'm really good. I'm taking it easy, sitting in my home watching it all. So yeah,
it's a lot warmer than being at Silverstone, isn't it, in real life?
Well, yeah, we were at Donington Park actually last week with a couple of the cars, and it was a really nice day. But it is wherever you are in these places. We were at Silverstone the week before actually, and it was freezing. Yeah, when the doors are open and the wind's passing through, it doesn't matter whatever time of year it is. It's always cold, but.
Yeah, I know that feeling very well. Now, Mark, thank you for joining us on the broadcast. I want to ask you about Praga and the guest driver program. For anybody that's watching at home that's maybe not familiar with this initiative, could you tell us a bit more about it, please?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm trying to think who's racing today that's in it. Jimmy, part of that. Ollie Martin, Jack Fabby. So it was really based around the fact that the R1 is such a great racing car, but it's never really had a presence, and for various reasons. So there's a real plan this year to really build up the brand awareness and really try and exploit and present how good the racing car is. So the powers that be at the headquarters in Prague and at the factory in Slovakia came up with this idea of if we send 5 factory cars over to add to the grid, we could make our own small grid in brick car of cars this season, and then maybe one make racing next year. But if we can populate 5 cars with various people of different experience, but really of different profiles, whether they're racing drivers, they can have a profile with racing fans, or people like Jimmy who've got a huge audience across a whole range of people. And we took that on, so we've got 5 cars that we just had to find 10 people who fancy to go racing just the small matter of racing a full aero downforce R1. So but it's working brilliantly, because I mean someone like Jimmy, he's got some racing experience, but for him it's a huge step up with downforce like the R1. But obviously huge experience from the sim racing, and he's got to translate that into the real world. So he's really got his bit between the teeth on it. And then someone like Charlie Martin, who's got really good experience of racing cars. For her, it's a way of moving up to really exploiting an aero car and a downforce car. So it's working really well. We're already seeing a huge amount of interest in what we're doing, both from new fans, but also new potential dealers and customers. So it's working fantastic, and it means we can do things like this, which is great.
Yeah, it'd be absolutely fascinating to see how those drivers get on once the season starts. And that kind of segues us on nicely to this event that we're at today, the Praga Esports Silverstone Showdown. Why a sim race? What's the thinking behind holding this event today?
It's partly I can see how good Jimmy really is around Silverstone in an R1 before I let him loose in one. Well, it was, because of the obvious reasons. When we heard that the first round of Brit Car was going to be postponed to April, we'd worked hard to get ready for this weekend to go racing, and we just said, look, let's still do it. So the beauty of it is that we can do it. So we just said, let's do it on the date, the time, at the location where we would have been racing in reality right now. So it's obviously not quite the same, and we're looking forward to the first race at Silverstone, which is now April 23rd, 24th. But fantastic opportunity just to have a bit of fun, but also mark the moment in time where Praga really built up its presence on the grid.
Fantastic. And one final question before we head to qualification, which is just around the corner. Very quickly, what are you most looking forward to with Praga for the 2021 season and year in general?
Funnily enough, we're already looking at 2022. So I think what we're looking for this year is really to give us a platform for next year where, through the awareness, through the guest driver program, through the relationship we have with Roman Grosjean and the R8G team, through all our different partners and friends, really to move to a one-make race series in 2022, and also then build our presence globally. We've got quite a lot of R1s that already race in North America, so we can build up a one-make race series in the UK and then start really developing globally. So that's what this year's all about. I'm also hoping there's not too many incidents on track through this season.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. It sounds like an absolutely fascinating time ahead for Praga. And Mark, if you ever need another driver, you know where to get me. But thank you so much for your time. Mark Harrison, Managing Director.
Likewise. Thank you, and good luck for the rest of the race.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Jack, fascinating to hear from Mark, isn't it? And the prospects for Praga going forward in the short, medium and long term.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen other similarly sort of smaller race car manufacturers sort of build a real presence, and now being almost one of the biggest presences in British motorsport. So there's no real reason, there's a space for it. There's no real reason why Praga can't do exactly the same sort of thing. And I think attacking a series like the Brit Car is a fantastic entryway into something that they can really get behind going forward. And hopefully we'll see the cars running in the likes of the GT Cup, potentially British GT, all those sort of things, and moving their way through and establishing themselves as a real force to be reckoned with when it comes moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a wonderful little race car. And if anybody at home's watching this and fancies a try in one of these cars themselves as a real world driver, then obviously head over to the Praga Global website, find the contact details on there if you want to inquire about a potential driving opportunity going forward in future to take the next step in your racing career. And if you're not quite fortunate enough to be a real world race driver and want to try the virtual one, then of course this car that we're looking at now is available in Assetto Corsa. So it's part of the 333 DLC pack. So you can buy that DLC pack. It's very little money nowadays. Comes with another whole bunch of cars, and this is a greatly entertaining little machine to drive. But now the business of qualification is in flow. We've got 8 minutes and 53 seconds left on the clock, so a very short session. Jack Fabe, we're looking at the moment in heavy traffic, so our drivers are not really looking to find a clean bit of racetrack. They are getting involved with each other, and this is where probably 4 laps, maybe just over, the drivers will have to get a time in before session's over. Qualification's going to be important, Jack, isn't it?
It certainly is, yeah. And these cars, as you said, there's not much of a gap between them at all. Now, if you were in the likes of the MX-5s or some Audi TCR cars or something like that, maybe you can make an argument for getting into the toe of the driver in front. But in an aerodynamic, a heavy aerodynamic car, there's a lot of wash, isn't there? There's a lot of push with the front end if you get in behind the drivers. So as soon as they turn into Stowe, for instance, you can see them already making a little bit of a gap. But as soon as you turn into Stowe, there is no air there to turn into, and hence why we see one of the drivers running wide just behind David Ward. So, yeah, a lot of these drivers, they're not entirely sure. There's not been a massive amount of time practicing in this car. As I said, it's part of the Assetto Corsa DLC, but that doesn't mean that these drivers have necessarily done hundreds of laps in it. They've had a couple of practice servers put up by race department before we went live today and everything like that, but it's certainly going to be a baptism of fire, and they've only got 10 minutes, and like you said, that's only 4 or 5 laps to actually get a flyer in there. There'll be no changing of tyres, I imagine, unless they're very confident that they can get out there to a flying lap, do an in lap, do another out lap, and another flyer. I don't think there's going to be time.
No, I don't think there is. We're riding on board now. David Ward is just about to come through Aintree and down the Wellington Straight. Let's stay with Ward for a short while around this lap, see how he goes in his opening stint of the race. Heading down to Brooklands now, so on the Wellington Straight, hard on the brakes, drop the car in a third gear, catch the curb on the inside, let the curb bring the car around and take it to the left-hand side of the circuit, back in tight again, hover on the throttle, just trying to keep the car nice and balanced through Luffield for a good run through Woodcote and down the old start-finish straight from the former Grand Prix layout into the flat Cops Corner. An incredible turn here at the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit. In a downforce car like this one, a quick flick into 4th gear, a little bit lower than I would have expected actually, to get a good run, use all the curb on the outside for the run into the Maggots Beckett's Chapel complex of corners. 5th gear for the first part, short stab on the throttle, hard on the brakes, 4th gear, catch the car to the left hand side, down into 3rd usually, run the curb on the inside for a long run through Chapel, down onto the Hanger Straight, 4th gear in his Praga, short shifting up to 5th, using the rev range of the car as best as it possibly can for the run down in a Stowe. This is where you need to be brave on the brakes. You've got to have a good front end on the car, get the car in nice and early so you can pick up the throttle nice and quickly, run the full width of the racetrack down Vale into the difficult club chicane, hardest braking spot on the track. 2nd gear, use the curb on the inside, straight line the second part of the chicane as much as possible to get on the power nice and early, slight breathe of the throttle through onto the Hamilton Straight, past the new start finish building here at Silverstone, and Dave Ward goes provisionally quickest due to the fact that he's the first car to set a lap time out on the circuit. Hornsby in 2nd position, a few seconds actually in a rear, so a good opening shot from David Ward in the Praga R1, the beautiful white, blue and yellow car. He'll be satisfied with that one. That's a solid banker lap to start the race, or the qualification even, get the teeth in the right way possible.
Yeah, well, David Ward, he's an extremely quick driver. I mentioned before, he won the PMR Porsche Cup in the Porsche 911 GT3 car that I did a bit of commentary on earlier in the year, and he's only gone from strength to strength, really, with these sort of aerodynamic cars, so no wonder he's already setting quick lap times. But a driver who's just gone to the top of the timings at the moment is Jimmy Broadbent. Now, but this is the driver that we're expecting to see right at the sharp end. It's Thomas Sibilia, and as he comes, actually, no, this is the national pits, isn't it? So he's about to go into Cops. Hasn't set a lap time yet, and it just goes to show we're already halfway through this session, and we've only had 1 flying lap put in from any of these drivers. So actually, our estimation of maybe 4, maybe 5 laps is actually going to be whittled down to probably 2, maybe 3, depending on where they came out. And as they go through Maggots, Beckett's and Church, you can see that the weight transfer of the car, the Pragas are really squatted to the ground, aren't they, nicely. good aerodynamics pushing through the corner. And I think as well, what we saw on David Ward's lap was a touch of short shifting, wasn't there? Maybe they're slightly more prone to a bit of wheel spin, and keeping the short shifting is a better way of keeping the car squatted down at the rear to get the power pushed off the corner.
Yeah, exactly right. You've got to catch the turbo at the right point as well on the car. You've got to make sure that you're maximising the rev range and changing up gear when the car is at its premium point, because there's a certain amount of rev range at the top end of the range that has diminishing returns, and it's more efficient to change a little bit earlier. And these are things that the drivers with the more experience, they've done the more practice in these cars, that are more used to racing in an online environment. That'll be muscle memory for them. That'll come as second nature, where maybe some of the guys and girls that are participating in the race today have got less of that experience, and it's more of a forced action. But at the moment, Jimmy Broadbent is our provisional pole position man on a 1:55.553. David Ward, that we rode with earlier, is currently the second position with a 55.878. And then 56.7, so almost a full second down, is Hornsby's Dave Newsham goes third. So Dave Newsham sets a good lap time, 1:56.176. Seal jumps into fourth position as we're speaking as well. So times are starting to tumble, but Jimmy Broadbent still looking good at the front of the field, although I do believe Thomas Sibilia is on a flying lap at this moment in time as we're looking at him rounding the back straight, about across the line. Can Sibilia do enough to get that provisional pole position with his first effort of the day? Currently 17th, crosses the line on the old pit straight, so I'm getting too excited too early. And Sibilia 17th place.
I didn't want to cut in there and make that point, but yeah, I was about to say he was about to come through cops there. But yeah, Sibilia, I think he has his last lap time scuppered, didn't he? He didn't quite get the run that he was hoping for. Like I said, maybe hunkering up behind the driver in front is all very well and good for the likes of the Wellington Straight and the Hanger Straight, but once you get into Maggots, Beckett's Church and to Stowe, the high downforce corners, Abbey and Cox, there's loads of them here at Silverstone, as we see Phil McGovern, having a little bit of a turnaround there. He's obviously the caffeine and machine. Callum Newsham here, and almost a Braun-looking Praga. I have to say, it's Adidas, but I'm going to call that Braun for now. Paul, it's looking sharp, isn't it, at the moment? But he's gone. P1 is the reason why we're actually having a look at him. He's half a second quicker than Jimmy's. He parks it on the outside. I'm sure he'll probably try and spawn back to the pits. And it's a cracking time by him. Dave Ward's gone into second place, a 10th quicker than Jimmy, and Sibilia has gone into pole position. 54.6. He's smashed the competition so far. 4 tenths up, and there's only probably about time for one more lap for everybody else to complete before we end this qualifying session.
Yeah, an epic effort from Sibilia there for pole position by 4 tenths of a second from Callum Newsham, as you say. Ward in third position, Jimmy Broadbent on the outside of the second row as things stand. And Sibilia on another flying lap, so he'll be looking to try and compound his provisional pole position, maybe stretch the gap a little bit further, but that does look like a very good candidate for pole position in this opening race of our 2-race afternoon here at the Praga Esports Silverstone Showdown. We're looking at Callum Newsham, as you say, in the Braun Grand Prix liveried Praga R1, and I must say, this is a car that wears a livery very, very well indeed. Every one of these cars looking resplendent here in the race today, but Sibilia, he'll be pleased with that one, a 54.603. That's out of reach, I think, for many of our drivers. But look at Callum Newsham getting all crossed up through the Beckett's complex. So Newsham, closest challenger so far, but half a second in arrears.
Yeah, well, the Newsham boys, both dad and lad, as they call themselves, are quite experienced now. They're pretty much racing in sims every other day, to be honest. They were in the Porsche PMR Cup that I mentioned earlier that Dave Ward ended up winning. They've been part of the Mini E Series, which obviously Callum Newsham is a mini driver. I think Dave Newsham used to be a mini driver as well, back before his BTCC days. Potentially Clio Cup, I might have got that wrong slightly. But they're also competing in the Touring Car, PMR Touring Car E Series by VRRC. So there's loads of different sort of championships that these guys are jumping into constantly, and it really shows their versatility. Here is Jimmy Broadbent on board, and I'm sure there's a couple of thousand people watching his live stream right now that are cheering him on as he goes a little bit wide onto the Hamilton straight as the checkered flag gets dropped. Is there an improvement in there for Jimmy? I'm not sure if he can complete the time once the checkered flag has gone, but Isaac Rain has got into third place, hasn't he? And it's a good time by him, pipping Dave Ward by just under a tenth of a second.
Yeah, fabulous late effort from Isaac Rain to get the second row of the grid. Sibilia, it looks like he's pretty much secure as our pole position man. He's still out on the circuit, as is Callum Newshan. Isaac Rain's day is done, as is Ward in P4 and Jimmy Broadbent in 6th position on pit lane now. So a few of our top 10 drivers are down pit road. The drivers do have the right to complete their flying lap if they started it before the checkered flag was waved. So Dave Newsham that we're looking at now in the all-white liveried number 27 Praga R1, currently in 6th position. He'll be hoping to try and find a few more tenths of a second to sneak himself up into that second row of the grid if he can. He comes now through Stowe, 148 kilometers per hour. Great speed in these cars, as you say, Jack. A lot of downforce, a lot of grip from the big, thick, slick tyres as well. These are a car that you can really wring the scruff of the neck. And can Dave Newsham do enough to improve from the 3rd row of the grid in the dying moments of qualification?
Yeah, he comes across the line, and it's going to be having a look at the timing tower. He goes up to 5th place. He displaces Jimmy Broadbent and puts him outside the top 5. It's Callum Newsham we're going to go back on board with now, so keeping an eye on the Newshams for a start, and he's going to be flatlining the right-hand curb there. It's going to be a last-ditch effort. Almost, 7/10 of a second he has to catch a try and go up to pole position. Callum Newsham comes across the line now to finish his final lap, and I don't think it's an improvement because it hasn't changed on the left-hand side of the screen. So it looks like Thomas Sibilia is going to be our pole position man as we keep on board with Freddie Hewitt, and the screen goes to black.
Yeah, fantastic stuff. And ladies and gentlemen, that is qualification for the opening race of 2 here at the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit in the Praga Esports Silverstone Showdown, powered by Race Department. A 10-minute soiree out on the circuit for our drivers to set their times. There'll be a couple of moments rest while we get everything prepared. The drivers line up on the grid. The cars are topped up with fuel. The drivers are topped up with liquids. And we're about to go racing for a 20-minute event. The first of 2, as I say. There'll be another qualification straight after, and then into second race and final race of the day. But Jack, thoughts from qualification? Is that what we expected? Any surprises in the running order for you?
I think it's going to be very interesting to see how some of the sort of real-life drivers are maybe trying to push through the order. Maybe they didn't quite get the cleanest lap time. I mean, a 10-minute qualifying round and lap that is as long as Silverstone is an extremely short window, isn't it? I think anybody out there who's raced in real life or sim races at all will appreciate that. So I think we'll see a few more mixes going through. Hopefully we don't see too many sort of big crashes. Sibilia obviously giving us what we expected. When you come in and you know you're part of the you heard someone's part of the R8G Esports team, the name comes with some weight. So let's just expect that Sibilia is going to sort of drive his own race and keep an eye maybe on what's cracking on behind. But as I said, Jimmy right up there at the front end as well. And I think I'm pretty confident in saying actually the person who'll be the happiest out of all those top 10 is a guy called Michael Seal, because Seal is not he's a marshal, which is always nice to give a shout out to the Orange Army. But he's not a driver that necessarily thinks he's the best in the sim world or anything. He sometimes gets a bit unlucky in the races, in the stuff that I've covered with him anyway. So he'll be absolutely buzzing to be in the top 10 of this grid.
Yeah, he will indeed. A couple of minutes now until we go on our green flag and the race begins. And look at the cars lined up on the grid, looking absolutely resplendent. As you say, Thomas Sibilia, the man with lap time in his back pocket. So we can expect him to be pretty competitive, to say the least. However, as Murray Walker once said, racing, qualifying is one thing, racing is an entirely different prospect altogether. And speed is one thing, but it's not making mistakes, isn't it, Jack? It's racing clean, not getting involved in other people's incidents, trying to get to the checkered flag as smoothly as possible. So some of those drivers on the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th row of the grid still have every chance of making their way up through the running order before the checkered flag waves in about 21.5 minutes time.
We have a lot of experienced sim drivers and real life drivers here. They'll know full well how to sort of like keep a race start clean and everything like that. But when it comes down to it, isn't it? I mean, there's endurance events where everybody sort of keeps it clean, keeps it nice. As soon as we go into a sprint event, something flicks in the head, doesn't it? Drivers just want to win. They want to get through, and I would expect some dives going into the 2nd and 3rd corner, the sort of new F1 style complex, the tight hairpins, and I'm very much looking forward to it. We've only got about 30 seconds now before we go green, Paul, and I can't wait. And to be honest, if we get a real life grid looking this good in the future, I'm all for it.
Oh, absolutely. And as Mark mentioned earlier in the broadcast, we're looking at potentially in 2022 a standalone series for these beautiful cars. But we're about to go on the green flag, ladies and gentlemen. So we are at Silverstone. The cars are the Praga R1T. This is the Praga Esports Silverstone Showdown, powered by Race Department, and we are about to go green in 15 seconds time. Who will get the best start? Who will have the best race? And will we see action in the next 20 minutes? The lights are on the screen. They're going to go red, then they'll be extinguished, and then more horsepower than you can shake a stick at will be laid on to the Silverstone tarmac. Isaac Rain in third position, trying to get a good start up through the running order. Everybody powers down into Abbey for the very first time, finding their own bit of real estate. There are 2, 3, 4 cars in the background off onto the excursion road, but Isaac Rain, third position. Now in second, Sibilia running away from things at the lead. Hornsby too wide. Bit of drama in the opening corners. Everybody's starting to clear themselves out a little bit. Fabe falling down the running order. Ward, one of our early qualifiers, down into 11th, 12th, 13th position. So drama aplenty.
Callum Newsham was the Born GP car. I saw a flash off in the distance, and he's already getting mixed up as well, going on to the Wellington Straight. Now we're on board with Ed Bridle as they fly down towards Brooklands and Luffield. The BRDC gantry getting a fantastic view of these Praga cars going through into Luffield now. The tight right-hander, such a long flowing corner. It's impossible to go around the outside there. Well, it's not impossible. I've seen it happen about once or twice, but it happens more often not to go up the inside. Sibilia's got an 8/10 gap, and look at this Bridle going back up the inside of Charlie Martin. But hello, is that David Ward trying to fly around the spit of flame going into cups, and there's contact. And I think that's Charlie Martin who's going to end up falling down the order. It is, and there's more contact. It's all gone wrong for a few of these drivers.
Oh, that's a real shame. There was some exciting racing there. Charlie Martin was the meat in a 3-car sandwich. Unfortunately, contact with Ward and then contact once again as she returns to the circuit. So that is a big shame for Charlie Martin, having a good start, very much in the heart of the action. But Thomas Sibilia now is our race leader, as expected. Isaac Rain in second position. Jimmy Broadbent holding up third position. So good start there for Jimmy Broadbent. In fourth place is Hornsby. Dave Newsham, P5. McGovern in P6. Callum Newsham that we're looking at now making contact again. Callum Newsham spears across the circuit under the Silverstone Bridge. So a really bad start for Callum Newsham on track so far. Thomas Sabacek that we're looking at there just covering the racing line as one of the darker liveried Pragas, and everybody is going to have a little conversation with the barriers that are lining the circuit. Sam Holman not prone to a little bit of nose fencing with the tyres as well, and we wondered if this was going to be dramatic, and it's been, yes, dramatic is a polite way of putting the opening lap or so here in the first race of the day.
Yeah, it's probably the polite way of saying it. It's probably the most concise way of saying as well what's happened here. And I've just had a glance over at Jimmy's stream. There'll be about 4,500 people cheering him on to go for second place here against Isaac Rain going in front of the BRDC. And Isaac's missed the first apex. Can he? Well, that means he'll be on the inside for the second one, and Jimmy wasn't able to get the power down to try and take advantage. A nice V there, taking the apex, taking the curve on the right-hand side and running really nicely wide. Jimmy seems to have this car down to a little bit of a T at the moment compared to some maybe of the more inexperienced drivers of the car around him. Maybe drivers who, once the car gets up to temperature, has a little bit of pace on him potentially. But there you go, there's that wash. Aerodynamics not helping Jimmy there as he's hunkered up behind the car in front, and that's a lot of what you see in F1, isn't it, Paul? It's the reason why you don't see F1 cars running nose to tail, because the drivers are smart enough to know that if they get really close up to the driver in front, they'll end up washing the front nose wide. And although I think we're having a wash of the rear end wide there as this car goes full 360 and joins back on Maggots and Beckett.
Yeah, that potentially was Phil McGovern, I believe it was. 10th position, just dropping down the running order. Rear end overtaking the front. Not sure if that was a mistake made of his own accord or was helped around a little bit by Freddie Hewitt that we're looking at now. But the upshot is McGovern drops outside top 10. Broadbent still hard on the tail of Isaac Rain for second position further up the field, and there's quite a few little fights here, there and everywhere. Sam Holman that we're looking at now in the shockingly blue Praga, the Praga colours of the beautiful car coming down, overtaking, who's that one he just passed? That is Sabacek, I believe it is. So Holman up in a 12th position following his early lap shenanigans with some of his rivals, and the drivers are starting to calm down a little bit now. The field's gapping ever so slightly, but Holman drops the car. It was only caught too much curb on the inside, lights up the rears as he gets back on the straight and narrow. And Sam Holman has faced every direction, including the right one, during these opening 2 or 3 laps. We're looking at Charlie Martin on the recovery now. Easy pass for 12th position through Abbey, I think it was. So Charlie Martin put some move on Sabacek as well. Charlie Martin will be a driver to watch during the course of this race as she recovers from a early lap incident that she was being involved in. 3 wide, remember, earlier on, and came out the other side of that one, unfortunately, facing in the wrong direction. And David Ward, once again, spins around, gets the car back on the straight and narrow, is passed by Seals, and David Ward having difficulties in these opening laps as well.
Yeah, it looks like David Ward has bigging him up before, hasn't he? He's only gone and showed me I was completely wrong. Now, come on, David, don't show me up like this. This will be a nice little interesting battle as well, actually, because David Ward and Michael Seal are actually teammates for Fast Star Esports, along with Sam Holman, who's, as you said, in the strikingly blue Praga here today, following Callum Newsham. Now, all these drivers have pretty much raced each other quite a lot, but Sabacek here, he's been in the wars, hasn't he? I mean, a lot of these drivers have been in the wars. Really, the only driver that hasn't been in the wars so far is Sevilla at the front of the field, who's got a 1.7 second gap. As David Ward now, probably Michael Seal knows full well who the quickest driver is here, and knows that he'll probably be fighting a losing battle if he tries to hold up the bright baby blue looking Praga as he slots through into Stowe. And there we go, Michael Seal goes a little bit of a check on the rear end and goes stage exit left onto the outside.
The Silverstone grass and runoff areas is getting plenty of attention. The fans getting up close and personal trackside with these cars as they're recovering to various different points on the racetrack. But Thomas Sibilia is our race leader and currently the fastest man on the track. Broadbent in 3rd position, still trying to find a way past Isaac Rain in 2nd. So great driving from Rain in P2 at the moment to hold back the hugely experienced Jimmy Broadbent. Broadbent will know he needs to find a way past that car as quickly as he can should Thomas Sibilia scamper away at the front of the field and make an insurmountable gap to the current 2nd place position. So Broadbent will be on his tippy toes, a man very much on the move, trying to find a way past Isaac Rain. And Hornsby and Dave Newsham gamely holding on at the back of your shot as well in 4th and 5th position. So great results so far from Hornsby and Dave Newsham, 4th and 5th place. Dibden in 6th. He's snuck up the running order a little bit unexpected as well. So Ash doing a great job in 6th position. And things, I think, dare I say, as we're starting to eke ever closer to the halfway mark of race 1, things seem to be calming down a little bit amongst our drivers as they get in their composure back, starting to get a little bit more all-important experience in this Praga R1 in Assetto Corsa as we're looking at the fight for 2nd position, still raging on.
Yeah, and I can't believe I'm actually going to say this around a 20-minute race around Silverstone GP, but at the rate that a few of the cars at the back are going, we may well actually have to deal with traffic by the end of this 20-minute race for Sibilia, because he's absolutely flying, and these 3 drivers are pretty much the only ones that haven't had a massive sort of moment so far. Touch wood, spit over the shoulder, all the sort of things you want to do. But I have to say a little bit of a note on Ashley Dibden, because you mentioned that they're up to 6th place at the moment, which is absolutely flying. Is the driver that I mentioned before, that this will actually be his first sim race ever. In a proper sim racing scenario, this is the first one for Ashley Dibden, and he's currently running in 6th place, which is absolutely crazy. Although, pretty well suited in real life. He's a Formula 3 driver. I think he's done Formula Ford, Saxo Max, and karting as well for loads of years. So he's been Formula Ford since he was 16 to 21, and then 21 to 26, which is the age he is now. He was Formula 3, so he's fairly used to high downforce machinery, which is maybe why he's probably quite looking forward to getting under the wheel of the real Praga, which obviously is a heavily downforce machine.
And now we're looking at Callum Newsham, 13th position, fighting with Charlie Martin for 12th place. Newsham goes to the inside, makes the move stick, and Callum Newsham past Charlie Martin, 2 very similar liveried cars indeed there, but Callum Newsham moving slowly but surely up the running order. As we're speaking about Charlie Martin being one to watch, Callum Newsham now takes that mantle as he's showing incredible pace in the number 56, but he's got a significant gap between himself and Seal in 11th position, so it's going to be a big ask, I think, for Callum to find his way into the top 10 for this opening race. But one thing is worth bearing in mind, Jack, is it is a 2-race event. There's limited amounts of experience, certainly in racing conditions, for these drivers. So everything they can learn and take away from from this race, is all valuable learnings for race 2 that they can hopefully put into effect. Unfortunately, Jack Fabe will not be able to take those learnings. He's our first retirement of the day. So Fabe out of the running at this moment in time. But I've just heard in my ear, Jimmy Broadbent is setting purple sectors so far this lap. So fast driving at the front of the field.
Yeah, no, they're going well, aren't they? They're getting into it, and I know that Jimmy actually didn't really jump into the practice server until about 10 minutes to go, and even then he was setting up his stream, so it's definitely one to keep an eye out on. Now Dave Newsham attacking Hornsey, though. Now, I've mentioned Dave a couple of times so far, and obviously a touring car podium sitter as well for quite a few years. He's certainly getting in on the mix here. A bit more downforce, a bit of a different car than the touring cars. As he goes towards the outside, he's not got that much downforce though, Paul. He's struggling to make that one stick on the Wellington straight.
Yeah, Newsham showing all the aggressiveness, all the drama behind the wheel that we've become accustomed to over the years in his various exploits in Clios and British Touring Car Championship, of course, and the big Vauxhall Vectra. Great to see Dave Newsham out on the virtual racetracks, and he'll be a little bit pleased so far. He's ahead of his youngster, his son, who's down in Callum, down in 12th position at the moment. And Newsham making something of a nuisance of himself so far, chasing Hornsby for 4th position. And at this stage of the motor race, Newsham looks like he's got more speed than the car ahead. But can he find a way past? That is a question. Careful now through the Beckett's complex, as you say. The aerodynamic wash of the car in front will reduce the downforce on the front of Newsham's car, but he gets a good run through the final sector. So Newsham now got a great run down the Hanger straight, glued to the back of the car ahead of him. Can Newsham find a way past into Stowe? The inside line's covered, goes to the outside. Will he stick around the outside the long way around the corner? Tries to cut the car back onto the inside to get the run off of Stowe. The car ahead, Hornsby, gets a little bit squiggly out of the corner, has to go defensive down into the club chicane, runs a little bit deep into the first apex. Compromise for the second part of the corner, and Dave Newsham gets his best overtaking opportunity so far this race. Can't quite find a Praga-sized gap up the inside, shows his nose in a cops. That's no doing. Sorry, Abbey, no doing there. And Dave Newsham on his tiptoes. It's a matter of if and not when.
Yeah, he's all over the back of Hornsey at the moment, isn't he? And Hornsey's just going defensive. Hugely aggressive defensive manoeuvres from him going into Stowe, wasn't it? Dave Newsham was channeling his inner touring car there. Almost looked like Ash Sutton in the background, in the back of a few of the drivers at Brands Hatch sometimes, just following so closely to the driver in front. It's like they're not even driving downforce cars. We're looking at MX5 championships here today. The amount of driving and racing that these guys have thrown at us in the Praga event. Silverstone Showdown is not letting us down whatsoever, and look how close he still is. A little bit of a wider line by Hornsey, but Newsham actually took too much curb. He took too much and actually unsettled the car. He had to come off the throttle. As now we cut to Bridle, who's trying to fight off, he's trying to attack Dibden, and then Freddie Hewitt's tucked in behind as well.
Fantastic racing throughout the field. So Ed Bridle, 7th position at this moment in time, attacking and defending at the same time. Difficult times for Ed Bridle in the number 7, the red and white Praga. I think you see in the middle of your screen now, he's in that difficult position where he needs to get moving and overtake the car ahead, but any half-hearted measure overtake will open him vulnerable to Freddie Hewitt behind as well. So difficult times for Bridle. Dibden at the front of the field, hoping those two cars will hold themselves up a little bit, give him some fresh air in 6th position to try and build a little bit of a gap on the chasing pack. But as a driver that's doing your first competitive sim race esport event, looking and seeing two cars snapping at your heels, credit where credit's due. Dibden doing a great job to withstand the pressure with just 6 minutes and 20 seconds left on the clock for this opening race.
It's stunning, isn't it, at the moment? And quite a lot when you see a three-way battle like this. The driver in the middle obviously has to think about the offense and the defense. But we'll go back to that point because Dave Newsham and Hornsey still isn't finished. Newsham still isn't past him. With only 6 minutes to go, this is getting now to the tighter end. And although it's only an invitational event, it's only as sort of a one-off fun thing to replace the real Brit car. It doesn't really matter. As soon as the lights go out, drivers want to win, and that's exactly what we're seeing here. But Newsham snaps. Oh, I was about to say it's a fantastic save, but all of a sudden Newsham's race has gone away, and Hornsey, I'm sure that'll be music to the ears. The skids of the rear wheels of Dave Newsham's car just sliding out of the Wellington straight, and now we're back on board with these three drivers with Bridle in the middle, Dibton ahead, and Freddie Hewitt behind. Bridle looking for the inside into the BRDC complex, and it's going to be a good move from Bridle into 5th place. Dibton may well see his 5th place turn to 7th before too long, with Freddie Hewitt crawling all over the back of him.
Yeah, fantastic racing. Newsham rejoining at the back of this 3-car fight as well. So a little bit of confusion with a slow-moving Dave Newsham. Allowed Bridle to find a way past Ash Dibden. Dibden moved up briefly to 5th. Back down to 6th position again, but looks like he's not given up the fight. Yeah, a little bit of a kiss behind from Freddie Hewitt, and Dibden is around in the Copse corner. So Ash Dibden, no fault of his own whatsoever, gets a little bit of a Jason Plato love tap type touch at the rear of the car and is facing the wrong direction, and Dave Newsham will have a headache. He's been up, down the running order, and now finds himself, despite that little mistake earlier on, in 6th position. Hornsey in 4th position with plenty of clear air behind him, and Bridle and Newsham and Ward continue their fight. So great racing, and unfortunately for Dibden, he's the big loser from that one, dropping down in a 10th position and starting to come under pressure from Callum Newsham in P11.
You said it was a Jason Plato love tap. Let's hope that Dibden doesn't react in a Matt Neal-esque way and make everything turn a little bit ugly here today, but I'm sure everybody will be in good spirits as soon as we go into the second qualifying. But you're right, I mean, it's a big shame for Dibden. As I said, he's a big Simcade racer, the likes of Forza, sort of casual gaming and stuff like that. First foray into this racing, I have to say, he'll be very pleased, in retrospect potentially, of the sort of fight that he was giving us here and the fantastic stream that he was giving us as well. I mean, Paul, we weren't entirely sure what to expect, but what we were hoping for was exactly what we've seen, isn't it? It's lived up to every hopes and dreams, really, this race, and showing the Pragas off in a really good light as well, and giving everyone at home something to get excited about and some fantastic racing, even if we can't do it in real life. Big news, though. Look at the timing tower. Rain, and look at your screens, in fact. Rain's gone wide. Jimmy Broadbent's gone through into 2nd place. Sibilia's still in the lead, but we'll ignore him for the time being because Jimmy and Rain have finally settled their dispute out on track, and it is Broadbent into 2nd place.
Yep, so that constant pressure that Jimmy Broadbent has been applying to the rear of Isaac Rain for pretty much the entirety of the last 4 or 5 laps, if not a bit more, has now paid off, and Jimmy Broadbent finds himself in 2nd position. Isaac Rain, we just saw him recovering back onto the racetrack, so whether that was a mistake or whether a little bit of help from Broadbent was applied, as Hewitt we see now facing the wrong direction. But the upshot is Broadbent now in 2nd position. Hewitt back on the racetrack once again, kicking up the grass in 10th position. Dave Newsham moving himself up to 5th. Will that become 5th position as we run down the back straight? Newsham on the inside line, nice and calm, gets the rear out a little bit, comes under pressure from Bridle, will keep defensive into the chicane, and this, Jack, it reminds me why I have missed watching Dave Newsham in the real world. Always full of drama, too wide with Bridle. Newsham still holds the advantage, but he's on the outside line for the right-hander, gives enough racing room. Bridle back in the 5th position, Newsham in 6th. Dave Ward going here, there and everywhere at the rear of his shot, but this fight is intense for 5th position.
Yeah, he comes from a generation of racers that is just to the point, isn't it? Just get the car up the inside, try and go for the move. Is there a space there? Yeah, I'll make a space there. Dave Newsham goes up the inside of Bridle yet again. There's no snap of the rear end this time, though, which means he can get a clear drive through onto the rear wheels and through into the tarmac as well. And you're right, Dave Ward is crawling all over the back of them now. The more they hold each other up, the more this is going to turn into a 3-car battle as as Newsham defends into Brooklands. Take the curb nicely, and all of a sudden, I spoke too early, Paul. It's already a 3-car battle.
Fantastic stuff, absolutely fantastic stuff. And I'm just hearing from race control that there are a couple of drive-through penalties for track cutting that have been applied to some of our drivers. So one of those is Dibden in 9th position, has a drive-through penalty. He'll have to go down pit road and back out again at the mandated pit lane speed limit before he can return to the circuit. So that's a big shame for Ash and Dave Newsham as well, the man that we've been speaking about. Dave Newsham, who's been in the thick of absolutely every bit of excitement, also has to serve a drive-through, so will drop from his 5th position currently in the race as we head into the final minute of action here at Silverstone for the Praga Esports Silverstone Showdown, powered by Race Department.
I'm absolutely good that we're already into the final 30 seconds.
Yeah.
I can't believe. Why can't it be an hour race and a 2-hour race, not a 20-minute and a 30-minute? It's been fantastic. But Sibilia, I mean, we haven't mentioned him that much. We haven't seen him that much, have we? But when he qualified in pole position by 0.7 of a second and then drive off into the distance by 8.2, what can you really expect? It's fantastic to have the R8G esports team represented here, and to be fair, absolutely smashing it as well. So Sibilia rounds that down to the Wellington Straight now for what will be the final time. Everybody seems to have got themselves a little bit of a gap, apart from Ward and Bridle, which is still a battle that is ongoing. Obviously, Dave Newsham has that drive-through penalty, so you can sort of count him out of that battle. But Sibilia, I mean, Paul, what can you say? He's done absolutely nothing wrong. If he has done something wrong, we haven't seen it, because he's been that perfect, basically, 9 seconds ahead of everybody else.
Yeah, Thomas Sibilia being absolutely dominant in this opening race. Put the car on pole position by a healthy 0.4 of a second. Got the start that he needed. Kept clear of all the dramas further down the running order. Did not put a wheel wrong during the opening encounters. Built the gap that he needed from the chasing pack. Led initially by Isaac Rain until he was displaced by Jimmy Broadbent, who now holds second on the grid, tellingly 10 seconds almost in arrears from the man that you're looking at now, Thomas Sibilia, the Roman Grosjean R8G Esport team driver, a very well-known racer in the lands of Assetto Corsa and Assetto Corsa Competizione as well. He came, he did exactly what he needed to do. He was fast in practice. He was fastest in qualification. He's not made a single mistake in the race, and his reward will be a race victory from the final corner for the final time. Thomas Sibilia is our opening race winner of the Praga Esports Silverstone Showdown, powered by Race Department. Jimmy Broadbent will eventually cross the line in second position. A disappointed Isaac Rain rounds out the podium finishers, and the fight for 7th is still ongoing, with David Ward chasing hard against Birdle ahead.
Yeah, Birdle did miss the first apex, but it looks like that Ward is not going to have enough in the locker to take away that 6th position. So Bridle followed by Ward across the line. And like we said before, I mean, the podium sitters really gave us a good race, even if they were maybe gapped towards the end. But that mid-pack battle, Paul, was sensational, wasn't it? It's everything we want out of sprint racing, just to the point. Moves at the inside, good clean racing as well for the most part, and just excitement left, right and centre.
Yeah, fantastic stuff. Congratulations to all the drivers out there. We had a lot of good drama and a lot of slightly less good drama, shall we say. Plenty of cars investigating the perfectly manicured Silverstone lawns, and the end result was a Thomas Sibilia dominant victory. Dave Newsham got the drive-through penalty but did not have time to serve it, so he will run down the order at the final running order. But a few final thoughts, Jack, on this opening race of the weekend.
Give me more. Give me more. And I'm very much looking forward to the fact that we do have more. We have a second qualifying up and coming, and then a second race. So stay tuned, that's for sure.
Fantastic stuff. And thank you, everybody at home, for watching this opening race. Now, please don't go anywhere. We're going to have a short ad break, a word from Praga Cars. Well worth watching that little bit of VT. And we will be back very, very shortly indeed for qualification and race 2 of the Praga Esports Silverstone Showdown, powered by Race Department. Don't go anywhere.
We're at Donington Park today. It's after the Brit Car Endurance Championship season's finished, which we won. But today is more about looking ahead to 2021 season. One of the most exciting things about 2021 is that as part of our development to bring in a one-make race series, the headquarters, the company in Prague, is providing us with 5 cars that we can populate with a range of drivers that we're calling our guest driver program. Not only will we have our paying drivers that are already with us racing Praga, but we're bringing in high-profile people who want to come into racing, and that could be a mix of existing professional racing drivers that have a genuine popularity, possibly outside of motor racing, through their own personalities. So we've got Charlie Martins racing with us, we've got Abby Eaton racing with us, Evo Magazine are going to race with us all season with their key writers who are all experienced racing drivers. Jay Morton, the ex-SAS adventurer, Mr JWW, who's one of the most influential people in the supercar world at the moment.
Turning up, pits, teams, strategy, car setup, all of that's brilliant even before you get in the car. So yeah, we're really looking forward to it.
We're going to be racing at Praga in our own class next year. I think at present it's something like 10 cars, possibly more. Going to be fantastic for Brit car and already bolstering what is a great championship.
I've got minimal experience driving on tracks and racing, so this would be my first experience really racing. I don't have a race licence this year, so yeah, this is all new to me.
In 2021 I'll be racing in the Brit Car Endurance with Praga. I'm really excited to get stuck into the opportunity. And Mark got in touch with me and asked me if I wanted to do this. I kind of jumped at the opportunity.
The future for VR Motorsport in Praga is very exciting, with some very interesting drivers and some very interesting driving combinations. So when you get whatever number it is next year racing together, I think it will be a real sight for the fans, to be honest.
We're going to have this mix of great professional racing drivers with relative novices but with the right mindset who want to be part of a team. What I hope is that it's a fantastic mix of teammates all working together. They're racing together and they're racing against each other, but actually in the pit lane at weekends it should be a great buzz.
Racing is the brand new Praga R1, which is a carbon monocoque. It's a sports prototype with a central driving seat. So that monocoque is mounted to a 2-litre turbo Formula Renault engine, which again is mounted to a sequential gearbox, and this is all wrapped up in a carbon fibre bodywork with high downforce, 620 kilo weight and 380 horsepower.
It's a really, really fast car. The fact that you've got a nice balance of aero at high speed and mechanical grip at low speed really hands itself quite nicely.
Praga, unbelievable car. Obviously lots of carbon components on the car, high downforce, lots of power. It's the perfect stepping stone for drivers who really want to experience sort of almost Le Mans prototype characteristics in a car. So yeah, brilliant car to race, really fast. Of sports prototype racing in terms of something that's very accessible to get into, because it's a car that gives you fantastic feedback from the moment you turn a wheel in it, so it's very approachable, but also it has a very high performance envelope, so you can, whether you're a pro driver or you're someone that's coming into this more from a pro-am perspective, it's something that you can really push and extract a lot of speed and a lot of enjoyment from.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Praga Esports Silverstone Showdown powered by Race Department. Our opening race has been completed, and now we are back once again for race 2 of 2 here this afternoon. Myself, Paul Jeffrey, and Jack Oliphant are in the commentary box, and we're joined by one of the most drama-attracting drivers of the opening race. Plenty of excitement there for Charlie Martin. Charlie, how are you and what happened?
Yeah, I'm not too bad, thanks. It was a bit of a frustrating race, really. I managed to get a good time in quali because I've only really been able to jump on this morning and start practicing. And yeah, found over a second and then jumped right up the grid. You know, there was a bit of carnage. Managed to make my way cleanly through all the incidents on that one, and then somebody hit me just as I was turning into Coombe. And yeah, I think I braked. Someone must have been right up behind me and took me out. And my race just kind of unravelled a bit after that, unfortunately. So yeah,
real
start.
shame. Now the question is, did you enjoy it though? Was it been a good experience so far, and are you feeling comfortable and confident for race 2?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I mean, the setup on the car is quite twitchy, and so it's thankfully the car in real life is a lot more stable. But it means when you're trying to chase those last couple of seconds on a lap time, it's really it does feel very on the edge. And I think that's why you probably saw quite a few drivers just coming unstuck randomly, maybe drifting a wheel onto the AstroTurf and having a big moment. But yeah, I'm feeling good for race 2, really. I mean, obviously a lot more track miles under my belt now, so hopefully we can keep it clean and get a good result.
Fantastic. And final question, Charlie, from me. This is obviously a virtual race in place of the real season started a little bit later in April. How confident are you going into the 2021 racing season, and what can we expect from you in this year's activity?
I'm feeling very confident. I mean, I've got a fantastic teammate this year, Jack Fabi, who was racing in the car last year and, you know, getting regular podiums, knows the car inside and out from a setup point of view too. So I think between the two of us, we're going to make a great, a great combination of driver pairing, you know, and yeah, I mean, it's just going to be an amazing season racing, to be honest. Whatever happens, I think we've got, we're racing on some fantastic tracks like Silverstone, Snetterton, Donington, Brands. It's going to be amazing, and just really want to get out there and get behind the wheel of the car as soon as possible.
Fantastic stuff. Thank you very much, Charlie. Good luck for race 2 today and for the rest of the year ahead. Great to talk to you.
Thank you.
Take care. So, Jack, that was Charlie Martin, a lady that was very much in the heart of plenty of excitement in race 1. So it'll be interesting to see how she copes in the second round. We're in practice now, but we're just about to hit qualification, and then our second, slightly longer 30-minute race.
Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to the 30 minutes. The 20, it almost didn't feel long enough, and I was having an eye out in the on the chat, the YouTube chat as well, saying make the second one an hour. Well, I wish we had that much time, to be honest. That some of our drivers need to jump off and organise some other things. So yeah, it was cracking, and I'm glad everybody else really enjoyed it as well. We're here, we're all for it for the second qualifying run. Will we see Sibilia coming out the top again? There's probably a good chance of it. Callum Newsham, obviously, he qualified in second place, but his race really didn't come to pan either. So there's a lot of opportunities for drivers to really sort of make up for what was a pretty poor start to race 1, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. And of course, the setups, as we've mentioned already during this broadcast, are fixed setups. So there's no real change of tweak to the car setup the drivers need to do. The track conditions are the same as they were in the opening round. So everything our drivers learnt from race 1, they can apply immediately into qualification. So do expect to see a few of the drivers performing stronger, I think, now. They've warmed themselves up, they've gotten used to what they're doing, and we should start to see maybe the field closing up a little bit. As you said, quite rightly, Jack, Callum Newsham was one of the stars of qualification in race 1, got involved in more than his fair share of excitement in the race itself, so we never really saw his full potential. So don't be surprised if Callum Newsham is right at the sharp end of qualification in 8.5 minutes' time.
Well, you mentioned the Murray Walker quote, didn't you, at the beginning? Qualifying is one thing and a racing is a whole other beast. And absolutely right, isn't it? It rings so true, and that's what we saw in race number 1. But what we did get was a fantastic midfield battle, didn't we? Because we had some drivers maybe trying to recover through the order, and that gave us an opportunity to see them sort of fighting with other drivers and maybe didn't quite get it in time with qualifying, maybe just didn't get the timing right, maybe they were in the wrong track position, or maybe abused track limits a little bit more. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing how it sort of progresses, and I think we will see a different order to the grid and a different order to the race results as well going forward, and hopefully everybody's calm down a touch, because Charlie in her interview there said, you know, it's getting a bit of a, you know, there's a bit of carnage. She got through pretty cleanly, and then there was a tap up the rear that meant just, you know, ended up spinning off and the race unraveled. Let's hope, fingers crossed, that we don't get as much of that, because obviously what we haven't mentioned too many times, apart from really Jimmy and Charlie, I suppose, is some of the Praga guest drivers who obviously we have to give a shout out to, one of which obviously was actually Dibden, who had a really good race in that one, didn't he? For the first ever sim racing experience, Paul. It was a baptism of fire, but he certainly held his own for a long time and actually got turned around out of the race. It wasn't like it was a forced mistake from himself.
Yeah, in fact, I would go as far as saying, despite some incredibly good performances throughout the field, I would go as far as saying Ashley Dibden, for me, was the driver of race 1, bearing in mind his lack of experience in sim racing and on board in esport events such as this. Dibden soaked up the pressure from the chasing field behind. As you say, the mistake was not one of his own making. It was contact with another car. So Dibden, incredible performance as far as I'm concerned, and I'll be fascinated to see if the experience that he's garnered, basically he's 100% more experienced than he was last time he started the qualification session in an esports race. I'll be fascinated to see if he can convert that into another strong race here for round 2, race 2, should I say, sorry. 1 round, 2 races. Get your teeth in, Paul. Let's do it right. So 6 minutes, 16 seconds left on the clock. David Ward once again takes the strategy of being the first man out of the pit lane, trying to get as much track time as he possibly can in qualification. Last time out, we only got a couple of 3 laps for each of the drivers, timed laps. So David Ward will be looking to maximise that opportunity to get as many laps under his belt as he can, get the car warmed up, burn through the fuel as well, get himself warmed up. And so far, he's the only man with the time on the board of a 56.251.
Yeah, taking the Max Verstappen approach, really, isn't it? Not really worried about what anybody else is doing. Don't care what the track conditions are like. Don't care where the drivers are. Just put me out there, I'll do it myself. And he's set at 56.2. Now, we know from qualifying in race number 1 that is about a second off what we're likely to see the pole sitter being. So Callum Newsham already goes into the 55s. There we go, a good example. Callum Newsham already 55.5. I think that was about the same time that he actually had to qualify in second place in race number 1. So Sibilia goes banging into the top there with a 54.7, already in the 54s. No messing about, Sibilia. First flying lap, done and dusted. Thank you very much. I'll wrap up and go home.
Yeah, incredible opening shot of the day for Thomas Sibilia, provisional pole position at the moment from Callum Newsham. There's still 5 minutes left on the clock, so a couple of time lap opportunities. And something interesting that I've noted from Q2 compared to our first qualifying, our drivers seem to be a bit more sensible about finding some clean air in which to go and set their lap. Qualifying 1 felt a little bit like a race with everybody bundled together, but it seems like they've learnt their lesson this time around. So maybe we'll see some faster lap times in this second qualification session of the day.
Yeah, well, I mean, apart from Dibden, you could argue, although Dibden's an extremely experienced real-life driver, so all these people who we've got on the server right now are either sim racers or real-life racers. Either way, they've all done some fairly big amount of qualifying in their lifetime. So if you're a real-life racer, you wouldn't go and tuck yourself up in a pack of 5 for qualifying, would you? You'd want to get your own space. So it sort of amazes me why they didn't convert that into the sim racing qualifying one when it follows the same logic. But you're right, that maybe they've learned, and maybe we're here for a little bit more quicker action. And the driver that we haven't mentioned too much, but is part of the Praga guest drivers event, and the reason why we didn't mention too much, because he ended up in the pits, I think, with the drive-through, is Miles Lacey, content creator for Supercar Drivers, the face of Supercar Driver, basically. And he's obviously a bit more than just a content creator and sort of, you know, all that sort of thing, to be handed the keys of £1 million supercars, £1 million worth of supercars every year. He's actually an ice driver in Sweden, so he'll coach you in Sweden on the ice actually how to drive fast and drift and do stunts and precision driving as well. we didn't see that much of Miles in the sim world, just in that first race, but very much hoping that we'll catch more of him going into the second race as we're jumping on board with Jimmy, who hasn't yet set a lap time yet, but Miles with a 2 minutes 1, I'm sure will be hoping to set a quicker lap time as he crosses the line.
Yeah, Lacey, not quite a representative time, I don't think, in the 2 minutes at this stage as Broadbent crosses the line with a 56.4. That's good enough for 6th position, but he's in heavy traffic at the moment coming through the opening section of the British Grand Prix Silverstone lap. So Broadbent laid on the brakes, pivoting the car on the rear, gets held up by a car running a little bit slower ahead of him. Broadbent a little bit impatient, I think here. Sensible manoeuvre would be to get off the throttle, get away from this one, find some free spaces. Now Broadbent goes wide, starts to get a little bit impatient. This has got tears written all over it for Jimmy Broadbent, but I think now he's starting to see a little bit of sense and backing away from that particular on-track fight as Jack Fabi, we're looking on board, one of our early race retirees in race 1. So Fabi, another driver that we have yet to see the full potential of out on track. And Jack, as a fun fact, is the chap that created this default setup that our drivers are using today. So if a conspiracy theorist might suggest that he created a setup that's perfectly suited to his driving style and everybody else will have to get used to it, I don't quite know. But let's see if Fabi, currently 17th without a good lap on the board, crosses the line on the old start-finish straight, is about to hit. I think, is he on an out lap or is he on a time lap? I'm not sure, but Fabi would be very interesting to see how he gets on and if he can put a time on the board and challenge the front 2 drivers, Sibilia and Callum Newsham, in 1st and 2nd at the moment.
Yeah, well, it's a good fact that he created the the setup that we're currently running here. But another quite funny fact is the fact that he will be partnering Charlie Martin, who came in and complained that the setup was quite overly twitchy. So maybe a little bit of a rub in there is already starting to form. But I'm sure Charlie didn't mean anything by it. But yeah, I mean, he's a sim-based driver coach from the Tiger Workshop that he runs. He's only 21, so he's clearly making moves in the motorsport world. And to be honest, you name it, he's raced a short list of things that he has raced before, Jack Fabi. Praga race winner at Alton Park, Maserati GT4, Radicals, Silverstone 24-hour in a Civic, where he finished 2nd in his first ever 24-hour race, and he's driven Fun Cup machines as well. So for a young man, he's been in pretty much everything, as we're now keeping a look at Callum Newsham, who is still in 2nd place, and actually the only driver who's currently in the 55s. Which is a little bit more of a gap that we saw in qualifying 1. With 30 seconds left to run, a few other drivers are going to have to put their money down. But I'll tell you what, actually, Paul, it just reminded me, actually, having a look at the timing tower. I mean, we obviously saw that little bit of drama with Jimmy in the 2nd qualifying here, where he was sort of quicker than the car ahead. But if the car ahead is on the qualifying fast lap themselves, just because it's not as quick as the one you're on, where do you stand on maybe having to let the car out the way, although you even know you're on a fast lap? It's a bit of a catch-22, isn't it?
It is indeed, and for me, if you're on a fast lap, whether you're slower than the immediate drivers around you, that's your right to complete that lap. So Broadbent has to come away from the throttle, which it looks like he's done now. The checkered flag waves, so we're on our final throw of the dice for all these drivers. Expect many of these times to tumble. There are quite a few drivers much further down the running order than I think we would expect. Jimmy Broadbent being one such driver in 7th position at the moment, but only 7 1,000ths away from the 3rd row of the grid. Dave Newsham just ahead of him, so Broadbent doesn't need to find much to try and improve his lap time and sneak another place at the very least further up the grid. Sibilia provisional pole position is in pit lane, as is 3rd place McGovern and 4th place Ward, so not many left on track that can improve their time. But Jimmy Broadbent, hard on the gas, over 200 kilometres per hour, crosses the line to go 3rd position with a 1:56.034. Massive improvement for Jimmy Broadbent. Callum Newsham crosses the line and does not improve his position, stays in 2nd place. Isaac Rain that we're looking at now, 6th place at this moment in time. Can he improve in the final sector of the circuit? He's looking at Ward ahead of him to try and move up in a 5th place at the very, very least. Rain a little bit deep into the Mickey Mouse chicane at the end of the lap, hard on the throttle, balancing the car, keep it within the track limits, not to get a time disallowed, and Rain goes 5th position with a 56 flat. So that is another very exciting qualification and sets us up once again for a great fight from 2nd on down.
Yeah, it's going to be cracking, isn't it? I think Jimmy and Rain are going to reignite the battle that they had just before in the race one as well, which I'm all about. I'm here for it, absolutely. Dave Newsham as well next to David Ward and Hornsey yet again. It's McGovern as well, right back up there. It's fascinating, isn't it? It's what we love sprint racing for. It's what we love dual events for as well. So it's going to be really cool to see how they've sort of learned from race one, maybe, and maybe we get a little bit of a cleaner run. Maybe we get a lap or two where everybody's sort of like trying to find their area of the field, because 30 minutes, it doesn't sound that much longer, but it is a good 3 or 4 laps longer than the first race, isn't it? Which should give us an opportunity to maybe see how these battles develop and give opportunity for drivers who maybe don't quite get the rub of the green in the first couple of laps to drive back through the order. And for the likes of Digby, it's actually going to feel like an endurance race compared to that first 20 minutes race, isn't it?
It is indeed. And maybe for those of you that are at home watching this on the Praga YouTube channel, first and foremost, hello and welcome. You may think, oh, this is just gaming. You're sat down and you've got your wheel and pedals. It's not a physical. There's no G-forces. There's no heat like you find in a real car. But actually focusing and being at the top of your game is an incredibly intensive experience, and 30 minutes, especially when you're racing at a very high level like we are here, is a very, very difficult thing to keep going for 30 minutes time. So you may see, especially some of the less experienced drivers, struggling a little bit to maintain their composure and their pace and their stint profile towards the end of the race. So a driver who looks after his or her car during the early parts of the race and has a little bit left in their tank to push could very well find themselves moving up the running order very, very quickly indeed towards the end of the race.
Well, it's, as I said, it's those sort of like intricacies that really play into a driver's mind. And when you sat there on the grid, you may have a plan. A lot of drivers always like to go into the race, onto the grid with a plan. Where are you going to position the car into the first couple of corners? Where do you want to end up here, there, and everywhere? But as soon as the green lights go out, I can tell you I was not one of those drivers, because as soon as the drivers go out, the lights go out, everything goes to pot. It just goes straight on, and you're just hitting it hard, and you're trying to make the best of potentially a bad situation. So hopefully everybody keeps it clean. But Sibilia, yet again, class of the field, expect them to really push forward.
Yeah, the car's behind. So Sibilia, the class of the field, as you say, showed that in both qualifications and the first race. In second and third position, they have got to get a lightning start when the lights go off. They need to get ahead of Thomas Sibilia and force him into the traffic, because when you're in traffic, that's where the jeopardy starts. And if Sibilia can be entertained and occupied with other drivers, that gives you an opportunity to gap the rest of the field and go for the win. I fear, Jack, if Sibilia gets the lead at the start, it's going to be another case of checking out at the front of the field.
Well, it well be the case, but as long as there's action in the midfield that there has been before, I don't mind. It's a fun invitational event. We're showing off some Praga stuff going around here, and I'm all for just action on track, no matter what it is.
Yep, totally agree with you. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls around the world watching the Praga YouTube channel, this is the Praga Esports Silverstone Showdown, powered by Race Department. We've had a qualification, we've had an opening race, we've had Q2, and now it is time for the second and final race of this Saturday afternoon at Silverstone. The lights are about to go red. When they're extinguished, the drivers will be charging down into the first corner for a 30-minute race. Sibilia gets a little bit of wheel spin from pole position, and he's going immediately defensive. Isaac Rain cannot find a way down the inside, and it is Sibilia in race lead. We see a little car exiting at speed onto the runoff area in the background, but mainly, more drama actually, 3-4 cars. Just about to say it's been neat. There's been further drama on the opening lap. We're looking at Hornsey at the moment. Charlie Martin getting a much better start. Dive down the inside for 8th position. Charlie Martin, the start she needed into this race, into 8th position, ahead of Sam Holman in 9th. Holman back on the attack again, looks to the outside on the run down the Wellington Straight. Can Holman keep the outside line? Martin gives him racing space. Martin keeps the car to the inside. Holman runs out of racetrack. A little bit of drama further down the running order, but the first half of the field, Jack, great opening few corners.
Yeah, we're all about this, aren't we? The top 4 odds are really strong at the moment. And you're looking at Isaac Rain, who's got a fantastic view of the top 4, mainly because, unfortunately for him, he's at the back of it at the moment. But Jimmy, Callum Newsham and Sibilia, they haven't pulled away. Sibilia hasn't pulled away as much as about half a second did it to Callum Newsham. And like you said before, to be honest, they need to push him hard at the opening laps, don't they? He's got cold tyres. I mean, they've all got cold tyres, but he needs to be sort of put under. He needs that vulnerability sort of taken advantage of as a few drivers go through the Maggotts and Beckett's complex. I thought there was going to be a dive up the inside into the right-hand apex. I'm very, very pleased there wasn't, because it was never going to end well, as Hornsey now is making moves on Holman up the inside into Stowe. How is this going to end up? In fact, no, Hornsey and Holman as they go in. Is Hornsey ahead of Holman? Sorry, got a bit mixed up on the timing tower there.
Yeah, great move. Typical move there into Stowe corner, and Hornsey into 10th position. Sam Holman, we saw him facing the wrong direction on a few occasions in race 1, so he'll be satisfied with his opening lap on the race at 11th place at this moment in time. We're seeing Bridle dropping down the running order as well, so Bridle now in 16th position. Maybe a little incident out on circuit. Phil McGovern Phil McGovern attacking Charlie Martin for that 8th place. He wants it back down the inside, late on the brakes. Martin turns in, makes a little bit of contact with Holman. She recovers. The car still facing the right direction, but McGovern aggressively, and now Martin makes contact with the rear of Hornsey, somebody's car, I don't know. Charlie Martin crashed anyway and came back into the middle of the track and is contacted again. Charlie Martin wanted a clean race too, and unfortunately only got it for a lap and a half, and then it went wrong.
Yeah, a bit of a cheeky touch up the inside by McGovern, I thought, into the first apex, and then obviously after that, I don't know whether Charlie actually span in sympathy for McGovern on the second apex, but it looked like there was, I think they were a bit too far away for there to be any contact going their way. So, I don't know, maybe we'll have an interview with them afterwards, or maybe they can let us know in the chat as we're watching Hornsey now trying to catch up to Freddie Hewitt. And up the inside here into Copse. It's a brave move going to the inside of Copse there, and it's forced Freddie Hewitt out wide. Luckily, no contact as we're going towards Maggotts and Beckett and Chapel. It's difficult to see where they are, but Hornsey's got ahead of Freddie Hewitt, I believe, on the timing tower, and there they are coming into shot.
Yeah, very nice racing from both drivers there. Gave each other just enough racing room to avoid contact, but not enough for an easy pass. And David Hornsey now very much the man under pressure. Got Sam Holman behind, I think it is, or Hornsey in the lead car. Yes, Hornsey in the lead car. Freddie Hewitt trying to find a way pass as well. And David Hornsey under significant pressure. Hewitt one way, then the other. Now has the inside into the braking zone, a little bit too far back. Hornsey runs completely wide, so does the car as well. And Hornsey misses out in that particular occasion, and that is aggressive between Freddie Hewitt and Hornsey as well. But the upshot is Hornsey stays in 9th position. Freddie Hewitt recovers into 11th, and McGovern now in 10th place. So drama, and a little bit more drama, all thrown into the mix. What a great dramatic opening few minutes of this second race.
Yeah, 5 minutes have flown by, haven't they? And as it looks like the car's spinning ahead, there's a massive crash between Bridle and Michael. Seal just got to the rear end, all twist and turn around, didn't he? And Bridle went straight into the side of him there. So Seal, I'm sure, a little bit too much speed put in. Front end grips up, the rear end goes light under braking. Maybe didn't trail brake it quite enough through into the first apex and loaded the front end. There wasn't enough weight on the rear end, and the car lost grip and slid across the circuit. And obviously, then Bridle didn't really have anywhere to go. McGovern has only one way to go, and that's forward, in his opinion. Hornsey in 9th place, who of course is a race instructor and technical manager for Brit Cars. So it's nice to have the competition that obviously the Praga is going to be running in. A few representatives from the actual championship coming in to have a race here in the car, in the sim racing world at least. So Hornsey, one of the sort of main drivers, that we've been keeping a focus on here in the second race of the evening. And I'm just trying to have a look. Was that Holman that we just saw flying off the circuit? I'm not sure. One of the deep black Praga cars.
There's that much happening that I'm struggling to keep up with who's on track, who's off track, who's overtaking, who's cutting grass, who's talking to barriers, and who needs to go back into the pit lane for a new pair of trousers after a very, very close call earlier in the race. But Phil McGovern, at this moment in time, he's the man that you're looking at now, the number 69, the black, the aggressive looking Praga R1T in 10th position. He's chasing down Hornsey ahead of him. Freddie Hewitt in 11th position, not too far away as well, looking to buy into this fight if at all possible. And then you see Bridle in the far distance at the back of the shot, recovering now in 12th place. Samacek in 13th place, a little bit further afield. Charlie Martin, after her dramas, we're seeing down in 14th position. No doubt race control will be having a little look at Charlie Martin's rejoin, a little bit spicy, shall we say. Seal, that we saw facing the wrong direction earlier, in 15th, and Lacey down pit road. And unfortunately, Jack, I do believe that we have lost Fabi once again. So real shame about that one. Another retirement for the man that made this setup as Hornsey, facing the wrong direction again. A little bit of contact with Sam Holman, I think it may have been, and both cars go around and around.
Yeah, it's again a few of the incidents like that. It's slightly more common in sim racing than it is in real life racing. So a few of these drivers maybe getting just a little bit caught out. It's quite hard. I mean, coming from a real life racer, I wasn't that bad as a real life racer, but I am a terrible sim racer. It doesn't always carry over as smoothly as you might think. It's mainly due to the fact that obviously you can't quite feel the car through your bum. Basically, you can't feel it through your center of gravity in the seat, and then you can't also quite judge the distance as well with monitors as you can in real life, say. So sometimes that can happen, which is a bit of a shame, and you know, you do see that in sim races sometimes. But I have to say as well, Sevilla had just driven off. We haven't mentioned him that much. We've got to give him a shout out at least once every 10 minutes, haven't we? He's off in the lead of the race, first place. Callum Newsham 3 seconds back, but he's got Jimmy Broadbent right breathing on his tail, half a second back. And then you got Isaac Rain. Obviously, he was in second place for a long time in that first race, but he's now qualified a little bit further down. He's in 4th at the moment, which I think is an improvement on his qualifying position. I think he was in 5th. But he's kind of struggling to keep with the front 3 at the moment. However, if Jimmy and Callum start fighting, you never know, that could bring Isaac straight back into it.
Yeah, exactly. This has got all the hallmarks of a fight that's starting to brew. A slow burner in 2nd, 3rd and 4th position. It's great to see Newsham manage to have a much cleaner opening start to his race. So he's 2nd on the track and seems to have, at this moment in time, just enough pace from Broadbent in 3rd and Isaac Rain in 4th position. But it's not going to take much fighting for that little fight trio to close back up, as we're seeing now. David Hornsey in 12th place, all over the rear as Sam Holman goes to the outside of Holman. That'll become the inside for the left-hander. He dives onto the brakes, keeps the car to the inside line. Holman makes sure there's enough racing room, and there we go. Hornsey up the inside on the racing line, catches the curb, one of the bollards, spins David Hornsey around, and what was just about to say is a nice and easy overtaking manoeuvre turns into an absolute disaster, and David Hornsey kicking up the gravel as he returns to the circuit will be frustrated in the extreme about that one, as Holman did everything he could to give him racing room, but he comes undone by one of those pesky bollards on the inside of the track and drops all the way down the order to 13th position.
I have never seen an incident like that in the sim world, you know, Brands just Silverstone GP. Yeah, I'm just watching it back on the stream that I've got up on another monitor because there's obviously a little bit of a delay. And yeah, I just still can't work out. I've never seen that happen unless around Woodcut there, unless it's in the wet or something, somebody spinning on the inside there. It's such a flat out corner for everything, but obviously the physics is saying no. As Hornsey's looking at the inside of Charlie Martin, who yet again has been in the wars, hasn't she, this race? It's struggling slightly for Charlie, but she sounded like she was in good spirits for the real world racing as Hornsey goes through a little bit deep potentially, but carries on. Luckily for Hornsey anyway, Charlie went a little bit deep as well, almost in sympathy. And now this three-way battle is actually a fight for 13th place, but he wouldn't know it because it's just about to brew up as exciting as if it was for the top 3.
And that is the beauty of racing drivers. They will fight tooth and nail for every single position on the circuit. And Charlie Martin, 14th place, just been dispossessed by Hornsey in P3 at 13. And now Seal trying to find a way past Charlie Martin's car at this moment in time. Martin got a little bit of a gap to Seal at the moment, maybe a little bit more lap time as well. But of course, all these incidents will attract damage to the car, so she could be hobbled a little bit by damage to that Praga, as Martin now very much under pressure from Seal behind, heading down into the left-hander. Seal gets sideways, gets a tank slapper, but keeps the car pointed in the right direction, and Martin lives to fight another day in 13th place.
Just about. Freddie Hewitt's got a DNF though. Michael Seal is obviously a couple of minutes down now, and Lacey is a driver who's in the pit lane again, unfortunately. As we see David Ward going around the outside of Dibden, and that was a brave move. It's actually going up towards the inside, but look at Dibden going very aggressive up the inside again. A spit of flames by Ward, and it's gone wide there through Stowe by Dibden, but I admire the enthusiasm and I admire the ambition.
Yeah, good lad, Dibden. Getting stuck in. He's not showing any of his inexperience in this kind of arena, although he does run a little bit deep into the club chicane. And Ashley Dibden really showing incredible potential in the world of virtual motorsport. Unfortunately drops to 7th position. That's an improvement on his qualification place. But Ward, David Ward, now up into 6th. And let's keep our eye on this. Can Dibden find some lap time in his back pocket and close back up to the rear of David Ward's machine over the next few moments' time? We'll find out, but Dibden once again providing plenty of entertainment out on the circuit.
Isaac's Rain has caught right back up to Jimmy, hasn't he? So Jimmy's dropped away from Callum by a second and a half. But look at this, Isaac. Well, in fact, no, we're jumping to subject Thomas. Subject Thomas. I think it's Thomas Sabacek, but either way, fighting with Hornsey, and Hornsey's carving through, isn't he? There's no doubt about that. Whether there's drama happening around him, you can't deny that he's getting up there, then maybe falling away a little bit, and then getting up there yet again. So he's clearly got good pace, but maybe overtaking is something that he has to work on just a touch. But like I was saying before, Isaac Rain in 4th place is caught right up to Jimmy in 3rd, and almost Jimmy was putting the pressure on Callum. Oh, now Jimmy's receiving the pressure from Isaac. So it's a bit of a switcheroo of race number 1 as Michael Seal now passes Freddie Hewitt, even though he's 2 minutes behind.
Yeah, this has gone. We said it was going to be a bit of a slow-burning fight, but it's starting to come to fruition now with 16 minutes and 40 seconds left on the clock. Isaac Rain is the driver that has dug deep into the back of the sofa and found himself a handful of lap time as he closes down Broadbent in 3rd position. So let's see if Isaac Rain has the tools at his disposal to get up to the rear of that Praga ahead and force a way past. Broadbent, of course, plenty of experience in the world of virtual racing, will also be a guest driver for Praga during the 2021 racing season when that starts as well. So I'm sure there's plenty of people will be keeping an eye out for how the transition from virtual to real motorsport goes for Jimmy Broadbent. But at this moment in time, Isaac Rain flying the flag for Praga, trying to find a way past in a 3rd position, and the speed he's got, it's not entirely impossible that he could start to close down and put some pressure on Callum Newsham ahead as well. Meanwhile, Thomas Sibilia, in an entirely different race on an entirely different race strike, is actually already in race 3. He's that far in front of these 2 drivers.
He could be a Snetterton and still be winning this race at Silverstone, to be honest. He's flying away from me, isn't he? It's brilliant. And just as we get a little bit of a sort of a quieter moment about halfway through this race, obviously a reminder of what we're doing here. It's obviously the Prague Silverstone Showdown, as you can see in the title, but it's an event that was being put on thanks to the fact that the UK government decided that racing wasn't going to return until the 29th of March. Well, if anybody has looked at their calendar recently, you'll see it's the 27th of March, and the opening Brit Car event was supposed to be this weekend. They missed out on it by 1 day, which is really quite gutting, I'm sure, for the organisers as well as Praga themselves. So the thought process came up that Praga would put on a sim racing event, as Sam Holman, who is currently out on track in 10th place, is a big sim racer himself for Fastar Esports. They thought of this idea, and they decided to try and get as many as their guest drivers as possible to take part, as well as a whole host of other sim racers. And obviously they got the excellent race department to help them push the program forward and try and get this event on. So actually we had the checkered flag drop at 1:35, I believe, exactly the same time as the Britcard green flag would have dropped in real life as well. So if you're wondering what on earth is happening here, that's exactly what's happening here, and it's why we've got some fantastic racing. Speaking of which, Phil McGovern is flying around the outside of the club chicane, and what a move this will be if he can pull that off. Oh, Paul, that is beautiful.
Absolutely spectacular from McGovern. All the confidence, all the poise in the world makes the move stick. And McGovern, 7th position. Dibden, once again, the man on the centre of all the drama. And Phil McGovern showing his chops in racing conditions for sure. That's a great overtaking manoeuvre. And a classic overtaking manoeuvre here at Silverstone as well, which is a track where passing certainly is possible, but you've got to be 100% committed, haven't you, to make that move stick.
Well, you've got to set it up, haven't you? In a circuit where you have plenty of high-speed corners and medium-speed corners, it means you've got to set up, you've got to make a driver come offline 2 or 3 corners before you actually make the move, because you can't really slot up the inside of a high-speed corner like Cops. Well, you can. People have done it before, but it's a difficult one. But you do have to sort of make them make a mistake into Maggots and Beckett, and then you have an opportunity to go into Stowe with a higher top speed and basically brake a little bit later. Even if you're going around the outside, then that's an easier move than trying to fly up the inside of Cops, which is the corner that we're going through now. So the fact that McGovern decided to go around the outside of the slowest corner on the circuit is extremely impressive and shows that he's a very opportunistic driver himself. Charlie Martin, 6/10 back from Thomas Savicek, and again, not quite having the race that she was hoping for, I'm sure, after her interview came in before and said, you know, hoping for a cleaner race, a bit more progression maybe in race number 2. Not quite happened, but thankfully for her, she'll be safe in the knowledge that she is an extremely accomplished and extremely capable real-life driver, and I'm sure when she jumps into the real-life Praga and the real-life Silverstone, she'll be enjoying it a little bit more than the tap that she's just given there to Thomas Savicek. They must have been shopping at B&Q, because that wasn't just a little tap, that was a big tap.
Hey, I like it. That's good. I'm keeping that one for myself. Yeah, Charlie Martin caught out by the deceleration of the car ahead, Savicek ahead, contact with the rear of it, and unfortunately that's another incident for Charlie Martin. Damage on that car will be accrued at a ridiculous rate, so I would not want to buy that car second hand. And actually Dave Newsham moves up in a 4th position. Isaac Rain, the driver we suggested might be the one to apply pressure to the back of Jimmy Broadbent in 3rd position, is facing the wrong direction, so Rain makes a mistake. I'm not sure if that was on his own or that was assisted by Broadbent, but the upshot is Dave Newsham now in 4th position. Isaac Rain drops to 5th place, and Broadbent in 3rd position has a little bit of clear air ahead and behind him to try and consolidate this podium spot. So Isaac Rain, big drama at the front of the field with 11.5 minutes to go, and Isaac Rain will be furious behind the virtual wheel of that R1 as he goes round the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit. He's now got 5.5 second deficit to Dave Newsham ahead of him, and Rain throws away a great opportunity to get a podium finish in this second race of the day. And Jimmy Broadbent will be looking in his mirrors thinking, that's good news. I've now got clear air and I can concentrate on the business of chasing this fellow down. Callum Newsham ahead. So it's Newsham's 2 and 4. Not bad.
Yeah, pretty good a day's work for the Newsham family, isn't it? But, I mean, that's Isaac's Rain. It's the second mistake in as many races, isn't it, unfortunately, for him today. He was running really strong in race number 1. He was in second place with Jimmy catching up to him. Well, this time it was the other way around. He was catching up to Jimmy, and he still is the one that makes the mistake, unfortunately. So we don't know if there was any contact. I don't think there was, but I don't think they were quite that close. I was keeping an eye on the timing tower for a number of laps. Don't think they were quite that close. So I think it may have just been a self-inflicted. Maybe he got too much power on the exit of the second hairpin as we're coming up to the first one here, and he's lost 8 seconds of where he was before. But I tell you what, Jimmy's gained 4 tenths, hasn't he, since we've been on board with him? Maybe, well, we know he's not afraid of the cameras. Maybe he's putting on a show for us here as we're on board with him.
Yeah, indeed, Jimmy. Now the pace has been unlocked. Now he's not got that pressure from Rain behind him. He knows he's got some real estate between himself and Newsham Dave in 4th position, so he can chase down Newsham Callum in 2nd place ahead. And that seems to have just freed up Jimmy's driving style a little bit. Starts to unlock a little bit more of the potential of this Praga R1. It's got a 2-litre Formula Renault engine in the Praga R1T, turbo-powered of course, as well. And it's the kind of car that encourages you to be smooth, is smart with the driving, carry the minimum speed through the apex. And when you can free up your driving style, loosen your hands on the wheel, the car can do more of the business it wants to do. As David Hornsey now, far from freeing up the car, is crawling all over the back of Holman for 10th position, round the outside, runs far too deep into the braking zone, recovers the car quite nicely, keeps it back in behind the back of Holman. Holman with that wide line that we see through Luffield, so that makes him a little bit vulnerable for the run through Woodcote and down the back straight. So Horns is straight back on the attack again, and Holman will go defensive into Copse. That'll compromise him through the fast right-hander. Horns stays to the outside line on the optimal racing line. This will give him the inside to the Maggots, Beckett's and Chapel Complex, and David Hornsey completes the overtaking manoeuvre 4 corners after it started. A great piece of driving, Jack, between those two racers.
Well, it's exactly like I said before, isn't it? You got to set the move up early. It takes 4 moves to set it up. 4 corners to set it up. Sometimes it takes 4 corners to execute as well, as Hornsey's just shown us there. And we're back to Jimmy Broadbent, who's in a Newsham. A new sandwich. It's well, I'd like to try and take credit for that, but I obviously butchered it. It was actually from Stewie, our cameraman, who brought that one on board. But yeah, Jimmy right in the middle here at the moment, and 6/10 off. He hasn't really quite caught up as much as he was hoping for, but we do have 8 minutes left of this race, so I'm very sure that he's probably biding his time somewhat. Maybe doesn't want to get into the wash, doesn't want to get into the quite close enough to maybe start understeering underneath Callum Newsham's gearbox. But we'll see if he really pushes that much harder going forward, or will he be happy with a 3rd place? I'm sure he's providing some fantastic content in his stream. He's giving us something to talk about as well, which is brilliant. And really, he's probably, well, there's no probably about it, he is the top place guest driver that Praga have brought on. Not overly surprising, considering he is a sim racing shed dweller at the end of the day, is his own words. But it's still good performances from Jimmy.
Yeah, excuse me, stuck in my throat. Yeah, fantastic performance so far from Jimmy Broadbent. 3rd position, although I'm sure he fancies a little nibble at the back of Callum Newsham for that 2nd place. There's no prizes on offer in this race. It is purely about the entertainment and the pleasure aspect for drivers and fans alike. But of course, this is a 30-minute race, is race 2. So we're now, Jack, into the unknown territory for these drivers. They've gone beyond what race 1 distance was. So the tyres are starting to wear, the drivers are starting to wear as well. So again, it's a case of who's looked after the car. Look how mobile these cars are. Look how much it is dancing under the control of Broadbent and Newsham ahead of him as well. There's much less grip on the table than there was at the start of this race, and that's starting to play in the hands of Jimmy Broadbent in 3rd position, who's looking very much like a driver more comfortable in these reduced grip conditions than Callum Newsham ahead of him. So I doubt these positions are going to stay the same all the way through to the checkered flag. Still plenty of racing to go with 6 minutes on the clock.
Yeah, it's certainly impressive, isn't it? I know Jimmy obviously does a lot of content throughout the week for putting videos up and stuff like that, as well as the training he does. But I saw a video of him saying, well, the video was, how quick can the Praga go around the Nordschleife? How quickly can he get that along? And I reckon that even if he only did 5 laps around the Nordschleife, the tyres are probably losing it by the end anyway. So he has probably plenty of practice. In slippery conditions, but Newsham gets a snap of oversteer on the exit there, and he could be in big trouble as Jimmy flies on through to take a 2nd position away from Newsham. Don't think Newsham's gone, though. He's going to come back and try and chase down Jimmy. He's an experienced driver himself in the real-life mini-series. So I think now that he has something to chase rather than being chased, Newsham can start putting the power down. It's going to be a great battle. The last 5 minutes is hotting up.
Yeah, exactly. And it's exactly what we spoke about just now. The tyres are starting to give up their optimal grip, and mistakes are becoming easier and easier to make. But Callum Newsham immediately recovering himself from that mistake all over the back of Jimmy Broadbent. Once again, so Callum Newsham loses 2nd position. Is very, very keen indeed to retake that one. And Broadbent now has clear track in front of him. So can Jimmy Broadbent do what he needs to do to gap the chasing pack, or will Callum Newsham fight back and recover that second place?
I can't imagine that Sibilia is under any kind of threat here. 7.1 seconds to the good with only 4.5 minutes to go. That's only about 2 laps, and Sibilia's been absolutely superb in the entirety of this afternoon, not just in race 2, not just in race 1. Practice, he was up there. Qualifying, he's dominated as well, and we'll give him his props where it's due come the end of the race. But right now, we've got to focus on this battle right here, P2, for Jimmy and Callum Newsham, because if anything, well, there we go. Jimmy takes that lovely wider line, doesn't he? It's a much wider line than, say, Callum Newsham. Maybe that's a difference of front-wheel drive that Callum's used to, pushing the car in earlier, knowing that he needs to sort of lift the rear left wheel in his Mini. But in the Praga, with a rear-wheel drive car, not necessarily the optimum way of doing it. However, he did catch up quite a lot. So there's Brooklands and Luffield. There's a various amount of lines that you can go through it. I was often taught as well that you can, through the right-hander, you can hug the right-hander and try and carry minimum speed, or you can try and veer it somewhat with a high-powered car. Different styles suit different drivers and different cars. But right now, what we can say is it's bringing us fantastic racing, and it has done all afternoon. So I want to say, before we go off and do all that sort of thing, wrapping up and doing interviews and that as such, a big thank you to the drivers for giving us a fantastic spectacle.
Yep, could not agree more. It's been fabulous to call the action over the top of 2 intensely drama-filled races, to say the least. And I still think there's a little bit of sting left in the tail of this one with 3 minutes to go. Newsham ran on this lap a little bit deep into Copse Corner, which lost him a few yards to Broadbent ahead. But he's very quickly started to recover that gap as Broadbent goes sideways through the final turn. So both of these drivers on the absolute limit of what their car and tyres are capable of giving them. Pressure upon pressure upon pressure, each driver willing and able and ready to pounce on the slightest mistake. But Jimmy Broadbent is the man under all the pressure at this moment in time, as Callum Newsham keen to make amends for his earlier mistake and recapture that second position. Dave Newsham in 4th place, a further 8 seconds in arrears, ready to tap pounce should a mistake be made by either of these 2 drivers. And yeah, to echo what you were saying, Jack, it has been not always the cleanest racing, but certainly thoroughly entertaining, which is exactly what the event was supposed to be. Entertaining for us, entertaining for the drivers, and most importantly, entertaining for the fans watching on the Praga YouTube channel at home.
Yeah, absolutely. Just had a look at Jimmy's stream as well, and the concentration that's put through his face right now. If anybody's wondering what a racing driver's face looks like when they're inside the car, it's not that exciting because it's pure focus, and they don't even blink. Just go and have a look at Jimmy's after this stream, because it is nothing but focus going on in his face right now. So he's obviously, this means a lot to him, I'm sure, and it means a lot to all these drivers. As I said before, it may be a fun invitational, it may be a bit of a fun race for these drivers to sort of get involved and get behind the car when they couldn't in real life. But at the end of the day, when the lights go green, everything changes. They want to do as best as possible, and especially these guest drivers, I'm sure they'll be noting that obviously this is an official Praga event. They will be racing for Praga in 2021, and as we're going on to the final lap, they'll have that well in their thought process, won't they, about how much this means to them and hopefully how good it looks for Praga.
Yep, exactly that. And of course, we'll be talking to a few of these drivers at the end of the broadcast, including that man, Jimmy Broadbent, currently in 2nd position. So do stay tuned for that one when the checkered flag has been waved. And this man, Thomas Sibilia, crosses the line for the 2nd time today to take a clean sweep of fastest qualifications and race wins during this 2-round event. And he's just been faultless to the point of being moderately boring, as Thomas Sibilia, hasn't he?
I thought somebody had put an AI out there, honestly. I thought we had AIs running in the field. He was, as I said, he's been faultless. But as I said in the first race, when you come in with the team name of the R8G team, Esports, it's difficult not to get excited. But then actually, when you watch someone who is this good, they make it look so easy, don't they? It's ridiculous, especially if they're in a world of their own. And it's like real life racing, to be honest. As soon as you get a driver who's out the front, a bit like Lewis Hamilton and the Mercedes in the F1, you see him out and away 10 seconds ahead of everybody else, and you sort of look at him and think, oh, this is quite dull. Why are we just looking at him? Well, that's the problem that Sibilia's got right now. He's too good. and he's been absolutely sensational. Oh, Isaac Rain! Isaac Rain at the timing tower on the left-hand side of your screen. He's got DNF next to his name. Not sure what's happened to him, but on the final lap, that's absolutely gutting for him.
Oh, Isaac Rain, nightmare upon nightmare. The end of the race has been very, very unforgiving in both events for Isaac Rain. He was running in third place for a while, dropped himself down in a fourth with a mistake, and now we see his name tumble down the timing tower. DNF for Isaac Rain, such a shame. But this man, Thomas Sibilia, he took pole position in both races, won the opening race, and now he crosses the checkered flag and takes victory in the second race of the Praga Esports Series, presented by Race Department. Untouchable, incredible, exceptional Thomas Sibilia dominates the event. Callum Newsham in third place, just behind Jimmy Broadbent in P2. Father Dave Newsham crosses the line for a very respectable P4. Ward in fifth position, and another outstanding drive from Ashley Dibden to cross the line in sixth in what has been, Jack, one mightily impressive debut in the world esports sim racing for Ash Dibden.
I think we've got to see Dibden back more often, haven't we?
Yeah.
I'm hoping for more of this from him, it has to say, and I'm hoping for more from Praga as well. To be honest, the car has been exceptional. We have to mention the car, don't we? I know it's a Praga stream, but we have to mention about how it promoted really good racing as well as sort of smoothness and all that sort of thing. The drivers get the most out of it, obviously, but it's also been fantastic wheel-to-wheel driving. We take our thoughts back to race one. Dave Newsham carving through the field with Dibden and Bridle. We saw it in this race as well. Jimmy and Callum, it was a bit of a calmer race, but all over the park, it was brilliant. And I have to say, what an event we've had today.
Yep, sensational driving, sensational car, and thank you to Praga for bringing this event to life. And now, it's been told in my ear that the first time anyone's got anywhere near Thomas Sibilia will be now, as he enters the virtual commentary box to talk about his race victories in round one and round two. Thomas, what a performance. Well done.
Yeah. Hello, guys. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to race with these guys. Thanks to Praga and all the staff who made this event possible. It was a great show. Thank you.
Yeah, you drove absolutely exceptionally well. How much practice have you put in ahead of this weekend?
Not too much. Maybe like 1 hour before, like 1 hour yesterday, and all the practice this morning. So maybe 2 hours of practice.
Well, Thomas, I mean, you say an hour. That's astonishing, to be honest. What is your background? Because I know that you're part of the R8G Esports team, obviously with Roman Grosjean. What is your background in sim racing? I say it's sort of because obviously you've dominated the field here, and I bet a lot of people are wondering what R8G and what you're up to more often.
Yeah, so I was European champion on project cars like a few years ago. I'm driving on Gran Turismo. I was world finalist last year. And then I did also the Ferrari Esports Series last year. I finished like 9th overall. So yeah, here I am.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, last question for me before I pull over to Paul. What's the Praga like to drive then? As I said, you've done a lot of driving on many different sims then. Can you sort of sum up what the Praga is like to drive when you're really pushing it to the limit?
I didn't understood the question, sorry.
What is the car like to drive today?
Oh, really, really great. Like this car is quite hard to go fast, but a lot of fun, you know.
Fantastic, Thomas, and a beautiful performance today. Just one last quick summary to wrap up. A little word about your rivals on track. We've had a great mix, haven't we, of sim racers and real-world Praga drivers too. It'd be nice to race on the same circuit as some of these fabulous talents.
Yeah, incredible. The first time I'm racing with these guys, and I hope it's not the last time. So yeah, thank you again. Thank you to my team to be the best team ever.
Brilliant stuff, Thomas. A dominating performance in all races and qualifying. Well done, and thank you for sharing a few words with us.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, great performance, Jack, from Thomas Sibilia there, wasn't it? Dominated proceedings over all, basically every time session that we've got. Fantastic.
Superb, yeah, and I believe we've actually got a few more drivers to have a chat with, one of which we'll probably be quite excited about. So, Paul, I'll let you take it away with YouTube star and Praga guest driver, Jimmy Broadbent.
Jimmy Broadbent, welcome to the virtual commentary box, and congratulations on 2 very, very entertaining races.
Yeah, cheers, Paul. It's I'm quite sweaty now. I'm not quite sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing. But yeah, it's I had to work for it. It wasn't like the most action-packed in terms of kind of overtakes and lunging up the inside, etc. But it was really kind of quick pace out there, so it was hard to keep with the no chance catching Thomas, but had some great fights in both races.
Yeah, it's been interesting, I suppose, from your point of view, racing against many of the different drivers that you're going to see on the real tarmac, hopefully, at some stage soon this year. How do you think they adapted to the virtual world?
I always think it's more difficult coming from
Yeah.
the real world into sim, because you lose things as opposed to gaining things when you go in the other way around. So I think to come in here and actually get round and do laps in this car, this version of the car is a bit slippy, so you got to be careful with it. And to get round in one piece, I think, is an achievement in itself. So I think they did okay. I mean, I didn't see many people, as horrible as that sounds, so I don't know how they did, but I hope they did okay.
Yeah, we had a few people talking to the gravel traps and the barriers during the course of the race. But from your point of view, what sort of preparation have you put in, Jimmy, for this event? How much time have you had behind the virtual wheel to get yourself ready?
Oh, I basically sat down for a few hours last night and went round Silverstone. But beyond that, I drove this car quite a bit when I first sort of knew I was going to be driving in the guest driver program. Just to sort of get an idea of what I was in for. I think I've done quite a few hours in this car, and I think it showed in the end. But yeah, it's definitely something that you need to have a bit of time with, I think, to get the most out of it.
Fantastic. And actually, just talking about the real world adventures, I'm sure 99.9% of the people watching today will know about your guest driver role. But can you just tell us a little bit about that, please, and what it involves and what you expect from it?
Yeah, I mean, basically, the whole idea is that Praga wanted to get out there a bit more, show their face a bit more, and they thought maybe foolishly they'll give me a chance to see if I can transfer my skills from in sim over to the real circuit. And for me, I'm taking this as seriously as I can possibly take it. I've been training. I've changed my diet. I'm doing a lot of hours in our own version of this car that we have that we're building at the moment. And yeah, I mean, it's a great opportunity, and I really hope that I can. My goal really is to try and at least be best of the guests. So beyond that, hopefully maybe a bit more. Who knows?
Sounds like you're doing an awful lot of preparation there, Jimmy, which is fantastic for the real world stuff. Is there been much of a support to helping you sort of get to the stage where when you jump into the Praga, you're sort of as best prepared as possible?
Yeah, I mean, I had some great chats, specifically with Jack Fabby. We had a lot of chats with him about what I can expect when I get in the car and how it will feel physically, and a good idea of what to train. One of the things that when you're a nerdy sim racer like myself is that you don't really build your neck up at all. And I've been doing some neck exercises to try and have something in there, because this car produces quite a bit of downforce in the real world. So if I'm not careful, my neck might fall off.
Well, I was hoping that doesn't happen, as I'm sure most of your fans are, obviously, as well. We're going to some fantastic tracks, aren't we, in the calendar? Which ones are you most looking forward to in 2021, I suppose?
It's got to be Alton Park, isn't it? Alton Park in this car is going to be mad. I can't wait. Yeah, I mean the left-hander before the hairpin at the bottom of the circuit, I think it's just like a hair of a lift, I think, in this car. So it's going to be mad in real life. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, sweaty palms, I'm sure, be had there. Well, thank you very much, Jimmy, for coming in and having a chat to us. And I'll hand over Paul to say goodbye.
Fantastic. Thanks very much, Jimmy, and great to see you on track, and best of luck in your racing endeavours as well for the year ahead.
Well, we now
Right.
have Sam Holman, I believe, Paul, in the interview waiting room. So, Sam, hello. That was an interesting couple of races from you there, wasn't it?
Yeah, interesting is a good word for it. It's again, Assetto Corsa isn't my typical platform that I'm on, so it's been a bit of a steep learning curve to not just learn the Praga, but also learn the physics of a different platform. So again, we're on to chapter 16 of race driver excuses now, but I believe they're all valid. But yeah, the first race was interesting. There was so much carnage on the opening bit, which I somehow avoided, and then did the second on the second race as well. But managed race two without any spins. Just went a bit wide into Stowe on the last lap. But other than that, it was it was really good.
Fantastic, Sam. Great to see you out on track, and it looks like you had a blast. You were very much in the heart of the drama during the course of both races. Are you pleased and satisfied and happy how the whole event went off today?
I have been. I mean, from start to finish, I mean, RCI and race department have been fantastic in helping me arrange it. It's all come together very short notice. My director, Mark, who you spoke to earlier, thought it was a really nice idea to mark the occasion of when we should have been racing. Obviously, today we should have been sat at Silverstone, which is about 15 minutes from where I am right now. So, it's a shame I'm not that way. But, as far as a substitute event goes, this is a pretty good second. And just like to say a huge thank you to everyone at Prague HQ for giving us the green light, basically, to put this into action and do it. I hope we've done the guys and girls over there proud. They've all been working so hard recently to get the new R1 ready for this upcoming season, which we're all super excited about. I know we've got just a few of the guest drivers today who are able to join us. I think I've met everyone now, and everyone's been super happy, super smiley, just ready to get in the real thing. I've had the pleasure of seeing the reactions of some of them getting out of the cars, and especially the new one for the first time, and it's really good to see. It's really cool.
Yeah, fantastic stuff. And actually, Sam, that brings me on to a good point that we've spoken ad hoc during the course of the stream about the guest driver program and bringing various names into the series, the Brit Car series in the year ahead. Are you excited to see how some of these talents, we've seen drivers from the real world go to the virtual, are you excited to see the likes of Jimmy Broadbent, Esport Racer, and how they get on the real track?
Absolutely. I mean, it's fantastic. I know Praga have got so many strings to the bow. A lot, the new Praga one that was launched in January is just the tip of, just the start of it, really. We've got so much exciting stuff to come over the course of the next few months and beyond. So yeah, sim racing on that regard is important. So it's great to have people like Jimmy involved in the program. And I've had a rig sort of in the cupboard for probably the best part of 10 years, but I just coincidentally updated it or upgraded it just going into lockdown before I knew there was going to be a lockdown. So I spent a large portion of 2020 sat in the room I'm in now on this simulator and trying to get a bit better. So it's cool to see people that you've watched, on YouTube and have such a great following and produce such great content involved in the program. But aside from Jimmy, we've got so many other really cool people as well. Obviously, Jay Morton's going to bring a lot. Ex-SAS soldier who's going to just bring everyone in the guest driver program brings something different. Jay's got the mentality, and he's gone. Obviously had some incredible experiences. So we'll see how he tries his hand at racing. Mr. JWW, obviously very experienced in terms of supercar and hypercar driving.
Yeah,
and I know he's done a bit of entry sort of grassrootsy motorsport as well. So yeah, I think it's going to be really cool to see how everyone develops. I could be here all day talking about everyone's individual stories, but no, everyone's got a really cool story. So all I could say to everyone is if you've enjoyed what you've seen and you like the story, please do give us a follow on all our social media platforms. Sign up for our newsletters. I think the cool thing for me, I've only been a part of Praga since the start of this year, and the reason I joined it was because I believed in the story, and as I've progressed and met more people, that's what everyone believes in, and everyone has bought into this dream and this the future that we can all see. So it's there truly is some cool stuff planned, and I think a lot of people are going to be hearing more about Praga in the coming months and years.
Fantastic. I certainly hope so. Been a brilliant day of racing in the future. Very much exciting in the world of Praga. So, Sam, thank you very much indeed for your time and for organising this event as well. We really appreciate it. And everybody at home, thank you all very much for tuning in and watching our broadcast today. This has been the Praga Esports Silverstone Showdown, powered by Race Department, an event that has been put on by RCI, by Race Department and by Praga to represent the Praga brand on the race day that should have been the opening round of the Brit Car Series. From a personal point of view, thank you very much for putting the trust in me to join the commentary team for this broadcast. I love doing this sort of thing, and it's been an absolute pleasure to be here today. And to Jack Oliphant alongside me, thank you very much, sir, for our first time in the box. It's been a pleasure to call the many dramatic moments on circuit with you today.
I'm still shaking. I can't believe I'm allowed to be doing this with you guys. It's fantastic. So thank you for Praga for getting me involved as well, and Race Department for organised a fantastic stream. I can't wait for more. Hopefully Praga put some more events on, but we'll be keeping an eye on them, certainly how the Brit Car forms out for them this year.
Yep, so as Sam says, do follow Praga on the various social channels. Keep your eye on the Brit Car Championship for their season that starts in April. And until next time, love you and leave you. Thanks for tuning in. Take care. Bye-bye.
We're at Donington Park today. It's after the Brit Car Endurance Championship season's finished, which we won. But today is more about looking ahead to 2021 season. One of the most exciting things about 2021 is that as part of our development to bring in a one-make race series, the headquarters of the company in Prague is providing us with 5 cars that we can populate with a range of drivers that we're calling our guest driver program. Not only will we have our paying drivers that are already with us racing Praga, but we're bringing in high-profile people who want to come into racing, and that could be a mix of existing professional racing drivers that have a genuine popularity, possibly outside of motor racing, through their own personalities. So we've got Charlie Martins racing with us, we've got Abby Eaton racing with us, Evo Magazine are going to race with us all season with their key writers who are all experienced racing drivers. Jay Morton, the ex-SAS adventurer. Mr. JWW is one of the most influential people in the supercar world at the moment.
Turning up, pits, team, strategy, car setup, all of that's brilliant even before you get in the car. So yeah, we're really looking forward to it.
We're going to be racing at Praga in our own class next year. I think at present it's something like 10 cars, possibly more. Going to be fantastic for Brit Car and already bolstering what is a great championship.
I've got minimal experience driving on tracks and racing, so this would be my first experience really racing. I don't have a race licence this year, so yeah, this is all new to me.
2021 I'll be racing in the Brit Car Endurance with Praga. I'm really excited to get stuck into the opportunity. When Mark got in touch with me and asked me if I wanted to do this, I kind of jumped at the opportunity.
The future for VR Motorsport in Praga is very exciting, with some very interesting drivers and some very interesting driving combinations. So when you get whatever number it is next year racing together, I think it will be a real sight for the fans, to be honest.
We're going to have this mix of great professional racing drivers with relative novices but with the right mindset who want to be part of a team. What I hope is that it's a fantastic mix of teammates all working together. They're racing together and they're racing against each other, but actually in the pit lane at weekends. It should be a great buzz.
Racing is the brand new Praga R1, which is a carbon monocoque. It's a sports prototype with a central driving seat. So that monocoque is mounted to a 2-litre turbo Formula Renault engine, which again is mounted to a sequential gearbox, and this is all wrapped up in a carbon fibre bodywork with high downforce, 620 kilo weight and 380 horsepower.
It's a really, really fast car. The fact that you've got a nice balance of aero at high speed and mechanical grip at low speed really hands itself quite nicely.
Praga, unbelievable car. Obviously lots of carbon components on the car, high downforce, lots of power. It's the perfect stepping stone for drivers who really want to sort of experience sort of almost Le Mans prototype characteristics in a car. So yeah, brilliant car to race, really fast.
Of sports prototype racing in terms of something that's very accessible to get into, because it's a car that gives you fantastic feedback from the moment you turn a wheel in it, so it's very approachable, but also it has a very high performance envelope, so you can, whether you're a pro driver or you're someone that's coming into this more from a pro-am perspective, it's something that you can really push and extract a lot of speed and a lot of enjoyment from.